Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Tuesday show. My name is James Chen, and I am joined here by...
Ultra David. That's right. It's me, fresh off another drive in my automobile all the way out to Ultra Chen HQ,
That's
where
right.
I am.
Exactly. You're here right now. We love our lack of social distancing. I'm patting David on the shoulder right now, so I'm rubbing the back of his head. Oh, dang, he twitched. He just pulled away, man. Come on.
Well, you know, I might be willing to give up some aspects of social distancing, but I'm not going to be reckless about it.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough.
So we're going to be talking about various things today. We'll start by talking about Evo being canceled. It's going online. Everybody knows that. We'll talk all about that. We're also going to have a special guest.
That's right. That's right. Online fighting games has been a big topic of late. We've been talking about that with a lot of people, and so we're going to be bringing on Mr. Mike Z himself to talk about online netcode and, you know, just basically a lot of different topics regarding netcode.
Yeah, and Skullgirls and changes that he's made to it. We'll talk about interesting topics in 5-5 matchup. We were given a ton of topics this week.
Yeah.
More than often. So I'm looking forward to that. On account of the next thing is fighting game news. There's not a lot.
Oh, dang.
But we'll talk about the stuff that exists.
David's hand is... Man, your hand is like disappearing for some strange reason into the ether. And I'm not sure how that's why that's happening. So, okay.
Oh, I'm next in line to be Sorcerer Supreme is the thing. And I have figured out a way to make it so that my hand disappears whenever I want it to.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So I'm not quite into doing the complete teleportation, ability, but my hand can.
Yes. Okay. Makes sense. Cool. Okay. All right then. So let's get started here and talk about some of the stuff that's been going on in the fighting game community. In particular, probably the biggest news here of the past week is that, you know, we've all been kind of sitting here waiting for this announcement. You know, we were all pretty sure that Evo was going to get canceled just due to the coronavirus and everything like that. But while Evo in person actually is canceled, they did announce that Evo is going to be trying to do something different this year and doing an online event. So
yeah, exactly. So they put a tweet out, and the tweet had one of those little pictures that people do where they make the message beforehand, and it says, "We are sadly canceling Evo 2020 at Mandalay Bay and refunding all purchased tickets. But to keep the Evo spirit alive, we're bringing the event online this summer. More information coming soon." Then in the follow-up tweet, all arena tickets and hotel room reservations will be refunded automatically. So if you're somebody who had already made your plans to go to Evo and you're concerned about whether you're going to get your money back, sounds like that will just be done automatically.
Yeah, and one thing, obviously, you know, with this announcement came the tons of memes of, you know, rage quits and disconnects and stuff like that from, you know, Daigo Parrys and things like that. And, you know, obviously there's a lot of concern. There's a lot of concern about how that's going to play out. Now, you know, I did see Tom Cannon put out a tweet that, you know, they're obviously very aware of all the trials and tribulations of online and that they're going to try to do something that will make it, you know, he didn't say like good or work or whatever, you know, they're going to do their best.
No
What's that?
He's no idiot. He's not going to overpromise something.
But
I am just, even before we talk about the online aspect, the fact that it's going to be going online, I'm happy to see that they could cancel without it, I assume, without it ruining them. I was concerned about that. I mean, you know, you had the Las Vegas mayor going on TV saying that she wanted to reopen Las Vegas and have her people be the control test to see how many folks would get sick if there was no social distancing factors. Just horrible stuff. Like, just the terrible.
Hang on a second, guys. Something is happening over here on my XSplit.
Horrible stuff.
Something has decided to duplicate itself. Okay, there we go. Sorry. Go ahead.
And that made me worried that Evo wouldn't be able to cancel because many of the events out there, fighting game and otherwise, have only been able to financially cancel because local governments have said you can't hold your event. And if you can't hold your event, then you can't be held liable monetarily for all the cancellations, you know? Mm-hmm. Whereas if you were to just cancel it normally, it would cost some of these people six-figure penalties. And Evo, I would have suspected, was 7 figures. I don't know, but I mean, I imagine it's $1 million plus is what I imagine their operating costs are. So I was worried that they would just be ruined financially, but I guess I'm happy to see that it at least doesn't sound like that's what happened.
Right. So, I mean, that part, that kind of mystery, you know, that we've all been kind of waiting for a while, at least is, you know, we're finally through that. We don't have to sit here and wonder. Although I think most of us were pretty certain the cancellation was going to happen. So, but like I said, kind of happy in a way that we've got the official announcement. Sad because obviously Evo's been going year after year, and to have it missed this year, you know, as an offline event, and, you know, it has done a lot to carry the FGC back in the day, and I just feel like that's kind of a shame that it's not going to be around this year. But like I said,
of course,
I feel like
it's the right thing,
right? But it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. And
also, I saw people like Eliver and Fubarduk saying that now they can keep their streak alive of going to every Evo because they weren't going to go to this one.
Right, yeah.
Fubarduk, who lives in Southeast Asia now, he wasn't going to go to this one.
Yeah.
But now he doesn't have to go to this one, so he can keep that streak alive when it comes to next year.
That's true. Okay. The other thing, though, is that this is bringing up now is all sorts of questions of how is this going to work? Because famously, when Evo announced all of their games, none of them featured rollback code. And all of the rollback netcode, and all of them are pretty terrible online. Oh, I'm sorry. Street Fighter V has rollback netcode.
Okay, right. If we're going to be technical about it,
I have to at least throw that out there. It has a form of rollback netcode. But to
remind everybody, the games that were official at Evo this year were Street Fighter V, Champion Edition, Tekken 7, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, Under Night in Birth, Dragon Ball FighterZ, Soul Calibur 6, Samurai Showdown, and then there was also going to be a small exhibition with Marvel vs. Capcom 2.
Right.
So none of those games has great online play, and I would say perversely, like bizarrely, Street Fighter V has the best netcode of any of those games.
I mean, there's a reason why, weirdly enough, that is one of the main fighting games I play online. Because I played Under Night online. I can't deal with it. It's just like I play it online and then I switch to training mode and it feels like two different games, and it's very frustrating. But the thing about it is, as this is the case, and because this is canceled now, there's really no obligation nor bearing for Evo to maintain this lineup. They can change to whatever they potentially want, in my opinion. And I don't think anybody would be like, that's not fair kind of thing, because obviously the circumstances have changed. So this is one major issue that I kind of wanted to address about this. There's a couple of other things that I've seen people bring up as well. But do you think they should change the lineup and put in instead like Killer Instinct, MK11, Skullgirls, and all the games with good rollback netcode, Garou, Mark of the Wolves? Hell, let's just put that in there. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I think they should change it. Yeah, I also don't know if they can. I don't know anything about Evo's contracts, but what I imagine happens is that they ask for a license from rights holders to be able to run games at Evo, and I don't know what those contracts entail. Typically, when I'm involved in those contracts, again, not for Evo, but in general, there's an obligation that, like, these are the games. The rights holder will want to know that Evo is gonna show the game.
Right.
Not like, yeah, Evo can do it, I guess, but it's more like, we definitely want this to happen, and that's the point of the contract for them, right? It's advertising, basically. I don't know if they're subject to those contracts anymore. I'm very curious about that.
Yeah.
And I don't have any intel either way, but just from, again, from my position with other tournaments and other broadcasters, that is something that I'm curious about.
Yeah.
So if they can't change it, all right, obviously it's stuck. But what I would want to have happen, more normatively, is, I definitely want there to be different games. Like, I want there to be games already. You know what I mean?
Right,
I already thought Mortal Kombat should have been there.
Right.
I already wanted different stuff anyway, just personally.
Yeah.
But, I was happy for the games and their communities who made it. But, look, you can't play some of these games online in ways that I feel are credible for big tournaments.
Right.
And that's what this would putatively be. I mean, what Evo wants is for this to be, I assume they want is for this to be a big tournament still.
Right.
And sort of tide everybody over because we can't be there in person. Well, I just don't know how seriously you can take an online event for some of these games. And even on top of that, maybe you could play Marvel 2 in like an elite, maybe you can do like Parsec Marvel 2 or something, right?
Null DC, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Null DC, yeah. But if, for example, if Marvel had to sign off on them using Marvel 2, or if Disney, I guess, ultimately had to sign off on that, are they going to be cool with the use of some emulator to play the game? I don't know. I wouldn't think so. So, I don't know. It's hard to imagine a way that they could play some of these games in a way that would be satisfying.
Right.
And especially when you think about how worldwide Evo is. Look, we get players from every inhabited continent at Evo. And you just can't have that in an online tournament. You can't have that for any online tournament. I mean, you couldn't do that with the best of netcodes. You couldn't have, Southern Chile versus Siberia, right? I mean, there's some things that you just can't do. But those geographic regions are way dialed down for most of these games. You couldn't have, not only could you not have East Asia versus North America, or Europe versus, Pakistan or something. You can't have East Coast of North America versus West Coast of North America, right? I mean, you have to have such a lessened size and scope to have tournaments on these games. And I think that would be a bummer.
Yeah, and even if you did run it on Null DC, for everyone to compete in that tournament, you're basically telling them you'd have to provide a link to the ROM for people to download, right. And that just would not be very kosher. And you know what? I mean, I think, the thing about it is Evo has always, kind of like had, I guess, a pressure to just, play the big games, right? Because they want to get as many people in there as possible. But I think with that pressure off now, I think this would be a good time to showcase some of the smaller games that, do have the good netcode out there. I think that this would be a great time to finally, put Skullgirls into their main lineup, for example, or put Killer Instinct back into the lineup to showcase an old game like Garu Mark of the Wolves or Samurai Showdown 5 Special or something like that, And I think they could, I think if they did that, nobody would be like, what are you doing? It would be more like, this is totally understandable. And I think, personally, I think it would be a good opportunity to do something like that. And I think it would go a long way also to maybe put a little pressure on the devs out there to think about trying to do better netcode, because this really highlights that, Tekken, Under Night, all these games are, Grand Blue are like virtually unplayable online in a lot of ways. Even though we do have online tournaments for them, you see stuff like Ronin Rumble has the East Coast bracket and the West Coast bracket, to try to minimize these kind of things as much as possible. So, maybe some of these companies will be like, shoot, we want to be in this Evo online. Let's try to put rollback netcode in now or something, I mean, I doubt that.
Think so.
There's no way they could get it done in time, tested, and working by then. But, it's just, I don't know, like maybe it's a good way just to kind of, highlight the fact that netcode for fighting games is wholly inadequate. So,
well, we can definitely highlight that for sure. Look, even if there weren't like this big COVID-19 situation where everybody is trying to work from home, that's gonna, that's put in a wrench into just normal game development anyway, as it has for many industries. So for sure, there's definitely no way that they can fix things in time. Right. Even if we didn't have this, they wouldn't be able to, most likely, right? It's just, that's not really in the cards. As far as whether it would spur them on to do it, right, for like maybe future changes, I just don't think that tournaments are that influential in what they are going to do.
Right.
Instead, I think it's more that, maybe at least some of these companies, as with Strive, which is going to have Rollback Netcode apparently, they are recognizing that over time. And I do think that the scene in general has been, at least part of why that shift is happening. I don't know that that's the entire explanation, but I think it's part of why. But for one tournament to have that kind of impact, I just don't expect that. Maybe in a future release they might change stuff. Maybe once ArcSys figures out Rollback, they can put it into other games, but they're not going to like go back and change DBFC or whatever, right? I mean, they're not going to go, but I wouldn't think so.
Well,
go back and change things like that.
The Undernight guy is talking about it already, right? So he's been talking.
That's true. He did talk about it.
He's been talking about how he's looking into it and thinking about trying to get it in there. So there's still a pile. But again, French Bread
but it's not going to happen by Evo for sure.
Right. And another thing, too, is that French Bread is a smaller company. They have more of the control over this thing. Can you convince Bandai Namco to go and try to put Rollback Netcode in Tekken? You can try, but obviously that's going to have to go through so many more channels than just, French Bread main developer guy going, let me see if I can do this. I mean, we're going to have Mike... We're going to have Mike on here pretty soon, Mike Z, and he's fixing things in Skullgirls that I think most people didn't even know were problems right now. He just put out a tweet today fixing like a little graphical bug that I'm sure nobody analyzed and noticed, but I always call this the George Martin syndrome, where in Strawberry Fields Forever, he does a cut from one take to another, and he'll never not hear that cut. He hates the cut so much. But none of us hear it because we don't know it's a cut and it sounds natural to us. So I'm sure, for Mike, it was the same thing. That graphic bug probably bothered him forever. And now he's fixed it.
As far as whether people who want to play these games would be upset if they were dropped, like somebody who wanted to enter Grand Blue Fantasy Versus at Evo and, maybe online Evo doesn't use that. I think their response is going to be heavily influenced by what's on the line, by what's at stake. If, as a player, you already can't have the experience of playing offline at Evo and going to Vegas afterward and hanging out with friends and meeting people and playing casuals, all the stuff that like you really go to Vegas for Evo, like most people don't go there expecting to win. So that's not there, definitely. But then, in addition, people who would have thought that they could win money, they're probably not going to be winning money in online Evo. Because the law is not great about that.
Yeah, okay, gotcha, yeah.
And that's going to be a limiter. So you'll notice when people run online tournaments, if they're trying to abide by the law, I guess, they will not allow certain states to enter, certain provinces in Canada, Quebec specifically, to enter. They will keep it to U.S. only or NA only. They'll keep it out of a lot of different countries.
Or they just have no prize money, right?
Or they have no prize money. Exactly right, yeah. Because in some places, you can't tie an entry fee to a payout, right? The prize pool that's comprised of entry fees isn't allowed in some places because it's considered gambling. Which is stupid, but it's still the law in some places. So there's going to be restrictions. There's going to be maybe no payout at all. And, is there an entry fee even? Like, if you're Evo, do you charge a venue fee for this? Like, I don't know. That's weird. There's so many online tournaments that are going on these days that are just free to enter.
Yep. Almost all of them, actually.
Right, yeah, exactly. And I don't know how they could get away with charging some venue fee. So I just don't think that there's going to be anything monetarily. There's not a big prize on the line. So, given that, if I were somebody who thought that I could win money in DBFC, Grand Blue Fighters, whatever it is, game that doesn't have great netcode, and that game gets taken out of the lineup, you know, it already wasn't going to be
right.
super important to me.
Exactly. Another one of the things that I know a lot of people have been talking about, if you don't mind me moving on to another facet, is that, you know, a lot of people are saying, don't call it Evo 2020. You don't want to sully the tournament name. You know, can the winners even be, like, would it even mean anything to see who the winners are at this point? Could they even be anointed as part of the same pantheon of offline winners and everything? Should it just be like an Evo 2020 asterisk or a 202 online, you know, kind of thing? Like, should it just have a EVE Online or whatever, just a completely different name so that it is, you know, obvious that it's not the same thing? Because you don't want someone, you know, bragging about their Evo 2020 online win when, you know, they're playing on Wi-Fi, you know, on their, you know, 56K modem or whatever, you know.
Well, I think EVE Online might already be trademarked, but
fair enough.
As far as other stuff, I can't consider it the same.
Right.
Yeah, and I wouldn't consider it the same, even if it was comprised only of games that were actually good with online play. Mm-hmm. I still wouldn't think of it as being the same thing. So I don't think that they should change the name because that's their thing. And if I were them, I think I'd want to be consistent about each time I run a tournament, it's called Evo. I think that's what I would want if I were them. But yeah, I don't think that it's not the same, for sure, to me.
Right. Yeah. And
even games that have good online play, it's a different experience to be next to somebody. It's a different experience to get their body language. It's a different experience to have the 1 or 2 frame difference. I think in MK it's 3 between online play and not.
People standing behind you.
Yes.
What's happening over here? What's happening over here?
We're getting yelled at by somebody who can't yet speak.
Should I let him speak?
Just have him yell. And then mute him.
Okay, all right, here we go. Let's, you can unmute yourself, Mike, so.
Oh, okay.
Give me the yell only.
Alright, I'm yelling. It doesn't have to be 3 frames when you play online. It can be 0. MK adding 3 frames is not the thing that has to happen. Okay, I'm done now.
Okay. I know that. I'm just saying that even a game that does have pretty good online play, like MK, inputs extra 3 frames.
Right.
I'm not saying, to be clear, I'm not saying it needs to be like that. But the extra stuff, the being next to somebody, the body language aspect of that, it's just a different thing, I feel.
I mean, just people standing behind you and yelling, you know, the fact that you're in a venue like that, it's a very different experience, yeah.
I think so, too.
But here's the thing.
By the way, I'd appreciate it if you covered your mouth next time you cough.
Oh, sorry about that. Sorry. Look, the thing about it is, I don't even think the Evo guys will consider this of the same caliber. The question was more like, should they figure out a way to, like, call it Evo 2020 :online, you know, just to kind of, you know, treat it as something a little bit different, you know, to make sure that it's not kind of the same caliber as the other tournaments or something. Do you feel like it's important to kind of establish that, or do you think they don't care and the community should just establish that and just be done with it, basically?
The community will already have felt that way.
Yeah.
So whether they want to call it something different or not, I don't know whether it's advisable business-wise. Is that right? I don't know what to tell you on that. But as far as what the community will think, people won't think it's the same. That's my expectation. I still think that you can think that it's legit in some games.
Right.
And I still think that it's likely that even in games with bad netcode where everybody's suffering the same experience, whoever ends up winning it's going to be somebody good. Like, it's not going to be some schlub who comes all the way in there. But, well, probably not anyway. I guess we've had weirder rules at Evo here and then.
I mean, hey,
with people like Mike Wakefield. But that's not a commonality.
What's actually relevant to this conversation right now, interesting enough, and I had forgotten to put this in the show notes, but I mean, top Smash Brothers Melee player just played in an online tournament, and pass the controller around to other players, entered in as a Smurf account and everything like that. And so, what's to stop something like that from happening, right? I mean, obviously, someone like Nephew is good enough that he doesn't need Punk to play his matches for him. But, the fact that Nephew and Punk live in the same place, NuckleDoo and Rob TV, like I said, most of those guys are going to have the pride that they would never let, anybody else play. But, just as an example, what if somebody who lives near one of those guys goes over there? Again, I don't think any of those players would do it, but still, there is
Look, we know people do this. There was a guy who did it. In-person Evo.
Which one?
You don't remember the whole Quackbot show?
Oh, that one. Yeah. He entered as a different name. Yeah.
That has happened offline. So
and then
it would happen online as well.
And then also, let's all remember, what was it, Russian MK player, right?
I guess that wasn't at Evo itself.
Right.
But he got top 8 at Evo was where my connection was.
Oh,
that was at Canada Cup, maybe.
Yeah. He at Canada Cup, that's where he entered as two different players. Yes.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah. It was at Canada Cup. He entered as two different players. At Evo, he got top 8, but he just had a different name at that time, which then sparked the rumor of maybe he entered as two different people at Evo as well. Kind of thing, which didn't happen. But the Canada Cup one definitely happened. So.
Anyway, so I'm sure that there will be people who would enter in as multiple people. In fact, that's probably been happening in all the online tournaments. Maybe not all, but it's probably happened in some of the online tournaments that have been run lately. The Coliseum, the MK one, has been getting like 300 people. Probably like somebody in there who enters twice. But it's not anybody that I wouldn't expect anybody I know personally to do that. I think all the players I know, whether there's somebody who has a credible chance at winning or not, they just care about competing, and I wouldn't expect it to happen much. But probably going to be some jerk out there, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, even Kay says it in the chat, too. You wouldn't be able to enforce banned controllers either. People could probably just create all sorts of crazy macros. Oh, I landed this combo. Let me hit a button. It'll do all the rest of the combo for me, kind of thing. There's a lot of questions at hand, so
possible.
I just don't think, so I don't even think the Evo guys themselves would, try to tout anyone who won this year as the same kind of award, level of accomplishment. And, the way Tom said that one tweet in reply to the other guy, sounds like they'll probably try to do region stuff first and then narrow it down or something, but... I'm really curious to see how they're going to do it. I wonder if they're going to play it up as just like a fun kind of exhibition, like, hey, look, we're doing this just to keep the spirit alive kind of thing, and present it that way.
Yeah, that's what I would like to see. I would like to see them do that. Again, I don't imagine that they'll be able to have big payouts or anything, so what I would expect instead is, or what I want instead maybe, is, to have it be a little bit more of a fun experience. There's not going to be anything to do after you lose at home, right? It's not like you're at Evo, where there's a ton of stuff to do. Instead, you're just, what are you going to do? Go make lunch with something? I don't know. Watch a stream. So I hope that there's some other draw, some other fun thing to be doing, something to watch. Some fun set of streams, something else for the people to do rather than just the gameplay itself. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's going to be something very different. I mean, I trust the Cannons and Wizard to come up with something interesting to do, especially because, Cannons are the guys who created GGPO, so they created it because they know that most netcode sucks, and so there's no way they're going to, come at this without the point of view that current netcode for fighting games are terrible, so...
I'd like to call on a member of the class to give his opinion after having raised his hand very politely.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Hang on a second. Like I said, he can unmute himself.
Thanks, Teach. I just wanted to say that there's probably more to do when you're at your house if you lose than there is at actual Evo, because you can immediately go play casuals in the same game.
I guess that's true.
I mean, there's no artist alley. There's no gambling. You're not hanging out with buddies who you don't get to see usually.
Right. It's basically you
True.
get
You go out in the back and play dice, right?
I
Okay.
do. I don't.
Why
Do
I
that.
stopped contributing.
I understand. Yeah. I do know. I have several friends who have basically stopped going to Evo. But I get it.
yeah.
For people who want to go, there are things to do. So I hope that there's other stuff that they put on stream or otherwise make available in some way. In addition, we had talked about having side tournaments at Evo, right? We brought that up early on after we found out that MK wasn't going to be in there, and Rick and I proposed having a side tournament for Mortal Kombat at Evo. So the intention was to run a tournament there, and it wouldn't be official, but we would still have a thing. Well, I just don't think we're going to do that at this point.
Oh yeah, of course.
I don't know what would it mean for it to be a side tournament at Evo when we're not at Evo, and it would just be like me and Rick running it. We're not actually.
It would just be another.
Like, yeah,
it'd just be another tournament.
It's just a competitor to Evo at that point. Like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
So I don't think we're doing that. So if there's going to be whatever games are going to be Evo official for this year are probably going to be the only ones that will be run as Evo. I wouldn't imagine there's going to be. Is Anime Evo going to be doing anything? I haven't.
Yeah, they're doing online stuff. They're going to be doing online stuff. They said that they're trying to figure out how to do all that stuff, and they've even acknowledged that a lot of the games that they play don't have great netcode either. So that they've been talking about it, but there will definitely be an Anime Evo online. Okay. To what capacity, we don't quite know yet. Obviously, everyone's trying to figure all this stuff out as it goes.
I'm sure some of those games that were in that lineup don't actually have online play.
That's probably true too.
I think they it's not that it's bad. I think they don't have it in some cases.
I mean, some of those games that they're playing are like Sailor Moon, right? That was
you just have to have a ROM.
X-Band okay. Sailor Moon online tournament. There we go.
Okay. Yeah, that might be legal.
God. Some people got really good at playing on X-Band as well, and
I do.
Hang on a second. Yes? Feel free to...
Point of fact, since the X-Band was a direct connection between you and your opponent with no interference and no packets, the X-Band actually had very, very good online performance compared to a lot of modern games.
Really? I haven't played it in 20 years.
A direct phone connection is the best performance you can get.
Really?
I mean, the modems were crappier, but the actual connection was better than you can get on the internet.
That's wild. Okay.
Wow. Okay.
Also, I just want everybody at home to know that each time Mike wants to say something, he politely puts his hand up like this, as if he's going to raise his hand in class. The teacher's going to call on him.
That's why he keeps...
It's meeting etiquette, otherwise I do this, right?
Yeah.
And then you never have me back on the show.
And that's why he keeps calling us teacher, too, Oh, man.
Well, look, we all expected Evo to be canceled. I am glad that they're going to be doing something. I kind of think it's a missed opportunity for some of these events to not have, at least just, I don't know, some charity tournaments. Something to have their name out there. Something to keep them in people's minds.
Yeah, of course.
Year. So I sort of wish that more tournaments had done that, but I'm glad that at least Evo seems like it's trying to do it.
Yeah, again, obviously people are going to be making the memes, the jokes, Daigo Parry into the disconnect. You saw the one where they spliced it with Eris, right? I mean, that was perfection. Yeah. So well done. But the thing about it is, there's all the jokes and memes about it, but in the end, I think it's still cool that they're trying to do something. And like I said, seeing as how, the canons are involved and they created GGPO, at least Tony created GGPO, they're well aware of what they're getting themselves into. So I really am curious to see how they're going to handle it, see if they do try to add a bunch of the high quality netcode games in there and kind of use it as a, hey, look, if you play Skullgirls, it's actually got good netcode kind of thing, It'll be really interesting to see if they try to do something like that. So
that's what I hope happens. All right, we'll talk about that when we know more about it. Anything else to say here?
Gosh, I think there was one more point, but I think we might have covered it just inherently. So that's all I've got for now.
All right. Speaking of that video game, Skullgirls. Do you know who made it?
Not sure. Wasn't it like Double Helix or something like that, or or Iron Galaxy? I think that made it.
Sounds right to me. I believe it was 1-2 Game Studios that was later bought out by Iron Galaxy. I think that's how it worked.
All right, well, so let's bring on our esteemed... I was going to make another joke, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to bring on Mr. Mike Z. How are you doing? You may talk to everybody and say hi and do whatever you want.
Yeah, all right. And my hand stopped phasing into another dimension. Hello.
Oh, it's going somewhere.
Yeah, because if I do this, it's just like invisible, right? So...
Is it invisible or indivisible?
I gotta go.
Oh, okay.
Hey, look! I've seen your Twitter, Mike. You're not allowed. You are not allowed to get mad at a pun, okay?
Oh, but the aim is that reaction where people are like, I want to be anywhere other than listening to this sentence right now. Yeah,
that's actually true. Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, if it doesn't make you reevaluate your life choices, then it wasn't a good enough pun.
That's true. That's the way it works.
Own man.
So,
right.
We wanted to have you on here because sort of most recently you have made some changes to Skullgirls, and we wanted to chat about that, but also wanted to chat about online play in general. But yeah, at the beginning...
And it's a slow news day. Yeah.
And there's nothing else going on.
We were desperate for somebody!
Yep.
Everybody else said no. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, I'm actually sitting on the bottom of the barrel right here.
I believe it. So I guess let's start by talking about Skullgirls and what has changed about it recently.
All right. So recently I had to go back and be able to build Skullgirls again because we're making the mysterious character for Skullgirls Mobile. And I had to build that in the old Skullgirls engine because the Indivisible engine is so different that it wouldn't have carried over to mobile at all if we'd built them otherwise. Yeah, even gender-neutral pronouns. That's right. No spoilers whatsoever.
Dang. Okay, look at you with all your practice.
That's right. Oh, I have my list over here of like things not to say. It's not Lil Band, that kind of thing.
Nice.
Anyway, so I had to make Skullgirls work again, and as part of that, one of the people that works on Skullgirls Mobile came back and told me about something that they'd done. I don't know if they want to be credited or not, but it was Liam, so there. That they'd done on Skullgirls Mobile, which was really smart, which is the way GGPO works. And actually, this is that bug that Street Fighter V had. Don't know if it still has it. Don't know if they actually fixed it or not. But the one-sided rollbacks thing, right, is because when two games are running, oh, you know what? I'm going to get rid of my background so that I can use my hands. Is that even possible to do? Can I actually just turn this off? Does that work at all?
I think so. You turned it on.
How many developers does it take?
You wish.
Okay.
How many developers does it take to... No, I was kidding.
Hey.
All right. How many developers does it take to figure out XSplit VCamp? Yeah, okay. So when you have two games running, they're running, time is advancing, right? I'm on frame 10, I'm on frame 11, I'm on frame 12, I'm on frame 13. The games don't always run at the same speed because if, for example, if I have a really good computer, my game can run faster than yours and have to, like, hold itself to a frame rate, or if we're both on VSync, but my monitor's at 60 and your monitor's at 59.94 or whatever it is. Or even if we're on the exact same game console, like a PS4, if the operating system interrupts one of our games at some point and doesn't interrupt the other one, they end up running at slightly different speeds. Right. So what happens is someone's game ends up slightly ahead in time of the other person's game. And in that event, there's supposed to be a thing that tells the game that's ahead to wait until the other person's game is caught up, and then they both continue at the same amount of time, right? Because when you're ahead, what happens is, so if I'm on like frame 20 and you think you're on frame 15, then when I get an input from you, it's always from the past, right? Yes. So my game has to roll back every time it gets an input from you, even though it's the current input. And your game, when it gets an input from me, gets it from the future. So if the game's good enough to not just throw that input out because it hasn't gotten there yet, this one never has to roll back, right? Street Fighter V's bug was that it wasn't properly syncing the games back up.
Right.
So one game would end up ahead and one game would end up behind, and it was usually the person with the better computer or the computer versus the PS4 that would end up ahead. So it was really funny because even from launch day, you would see people be like, this game is perfect and I've never had a single rollback. And other people are like, every match that I play has a ton of rollbacks and I don't know why. And it was usually the people with the good computers that were complaining about all the rollbacks and the people with worse computers or worse internet connections that weren't, because the good computers ended up ahead. So anyway, so when you get to a situation like this, what happens is, since you can't make this game run faster, because that'd be very weird, and also because the game may not run faster, the game that's ahead has to say, okay, well, I'm going to wait for this one to catch up. Right. So assuming that that is properly implemented, the default way that GGPO does it is by just having this game sleep, which is computer terminology for do absolutely nothing.
Yes.
Right? It's the technical term. I don't know if people have heard it before.
I have.
But okay, so you sleep. So what that means is, if this game's like 3 frames ahead of the other one when it checks, that means it will stop for 3 whole frames and do nothing. Mm-hmm. Right? No inputs, no processing, no nothing. Which does serve the intended purpose of syncing the 2 games up, but also means that you experience a point at which your input can get dropped or anything else can happen badly because the game's doing nothing. Right? So that's actually in the demonstration or the template implementation for GGPO is when you receive this message, sleep, right? So the idea from Skullgirls Mobile was, since Skullgirls runs on turbo, which means every so often it just doesn't draw one of the frames and then continues, so it actually runs at faster than 60. When GGPO tells you you're 3 frames ahead, instead of sleeping, just keep a counter and then skip doing the turbo speed for that many frames you would drop.
Right. Okay.
Right. So you effectively run 1 frame slower in that instance, but the game's still running.
Right. So basically, instead of
it's not sleeping, it's just a little slower for that period of time.
Right.
The equivalent for Skullgirls is it goes from running 72 frames a second to running at 68 frames a second. The equivalent for like a normal game would be it goes from running at 60 to running at about 56. Because we did a bunch of empirical testing and it turns out that dropping every skipped frame was really bad, so we made it every other, which is basically an extra frame every 14. So what happens is your game still runs at the same basic speed because the really useful part of this is if you look at Marvel 2 in the arcade, that had huge slowdown all the time when stuff was going on screen and people could still play it fine. Right? Which means a little bit of slowdown that people don't really notice makes almost no difference. And you can do extra things like try and put that frame when there is a hit stop happening for the point characters, so you wouldn't be able to do anything anyway, and we did some of that.
Interesting.
GGPO, actually, if you want to talk about clever stuff, GGPO's initial implementation won't tell you to sleep while someone is entering a motion. It waits for the input to be the same for 10 frames before it'll even tell the game that it wants you to sleep if you're ahead.
So it just won't interrupt. That way it won't interrupt any inputs, basically. It won't actually kill any inputs.
Yep. So the cool bit about this is we can throw that out entirely, right? Because it can tell you to sleep all the time, very frequently, and you're not actually going to sleep. You're just going to keep track of how many frames you want to not skip.
Because the whole thing about it is, before, when you sleep it literally is not processing anything. And it was probably a little bit harder to just make it so that it still process things without moving, because then you're getting multiple inputs in 1 frame. How do you handle that kind of situation?
Yep.
But if you slow
Games don't even handle that properly when they're running at 60 frames a second. Look at all the bugs where you could hold the 3-kick macro and do something else with Balrog, right? Input processing is difficult enough as it is, that doing something like that is prohibitively time-consuming.
Right. And another thing, too, is that Skullgirls, if I'm not mistaken, already has... and I'm still blown away by how this works, because even as a programmer, I still don't really process it. But your game runs at, a specific frame rate but then outputs it in a different frame rate, and even if they don't match, you still can figure out what's supposed to happen or something like that.
Oh, you're just talking about processing inputs on the skipped frames, I think.
Yeah.
Either that or triple buffering. But
yeah.
So basically, like old Capcom games, when you run them at turbo, like ST, right? The way that works is it shows you frame 1, it shows you frame 2, it shows you frame 3. It runs frame 4 but doesn't show it to you and doesn't process any input. And then it runs frame 5 and shows that to you, right? And actually, in ST's case, I think it's like show frame 1 and 2, skip 3, show 4 and 5, skip 6. Like Turbo 3 is like ridiculous.
Yeah.
But what that means is those frames where the game updates itself but doesn't process any input and doesn't render anything happen like instantaneously, right? But there wasn't any input given on that frame. So for example, if something was about to hit you and you attempted to block, it would be not blockable, right? Like if Marvel 2 has a bunch of these, this comes up because of the way that Capcom implemented how you have to block, which is you have to be in pre-block before you can actually block. So if the skipped frame is the one where you holding back would put you into pre-block, then you just can't block the next thing. SG doesn't have that problem because you can block during any action, but that's a whole separate, like, that's a bunch of bugs interacting to be a problem all at once. But the point is, Skullgirls just does exactly that, except on the frame that we don't show you, we still read inputs.
Gotcha.
Right? So it's just pull the joystick again, which means there's no frame that goes by where you can't provide input to your character. There's a smaller window, but we have at least a 2-frame buffer on almost everything.
Right. Okay. Gotcha.
So the really cool bit about that one idea is all the rest of the stuff that it led to. So now the game doesn't have to sleep when it's trying to let the opponent catch up, which means you can check very much more often whether you're ahead or not, right? Because the way that GGPO works is you set a threshold for like how much ahead am I allowed to be before it will tell me to sleep, and also how often will it check to see whether I'm ahead. So the default is like every 4 seconds or something, it checks to see if you're ahead, and you have to be more than, I think, 4 frames, might be 5 frames, but ahead of the other person before it tells you to sleep. So the problem with that is, if you're 4 frames ahead, not 5, it won't tell you to sleep, right? But what that means is every frame you're getting 4 frames worth of rollbacks when you get the input from the other person. So what not having to sleep let us do is check much more often and make that threshold of how far ahead you have to be nothing. Right?
Right.
So
you check so frequently. You check so frequently that threshold is essentially useless now.
Oh well, we made the because you could still make the threshold 4, and it would just not tell you to drop any frames, right? Until you were 4 frames ahead of them. But we made the threshold 1, and we have it check every like 70 frames or something, which means you keep yourself in sync much more often, which means you experience the little mini rollbacks that happen all the time way less.
Right.
And that was the thing that made the giant difference to everything. And it was such a difference that our other programmer lives in England. He's awake when I'm awake at like 2 in the morning. So I did this at like 2 a.m. and I tested it with him. And it was so good that we both played one game and then we messaged each other immediately and we're like, it can't be that much better. We have to go back and try the old one. Like, it was everything you ever wanted out of online, and I actually can't overstate what a huge difference that made. Like, it went from playing against someone at 205 ping being, God, I really hate playing this game online and getting mad at playing the game online, to playing someone at 205 ping and getting mad that it's 2 in the morning and I can't play the game.
Well,
right? Like, I was legitimately like, damn, I really need to practice this.
I mean, what's crazy about that, though, is that, Skullgirls has always been kind of the paragon of netcode, right? One of the best examples. That and Killer Instinct, I feel like, have always been the biggest examples. And yet, you found a way to make it even better. I mean, obviously, useless question, but that surprised even you, right? That it could get that much better.
I mean, okay, so full disclosure, I was an idiot when I worked on Skullgirls in a lot of ways, and one of them was I didn't know anything about netcode or how to write frame skip code, right? Not frame skip like skipping every other frame to make it go faster, but frame skip as like throttle it so it only runs at 60 even if your computer could run it at 500.
Okay.
So one of the other things that I fixed after that was actually the way that my frame skip code worked was interacting with GGPO telling you to slow down extremely badly. To the point where GGPO would tell you you need to be 3 frames slower, and it would be 3 frames slower, and then it would be like, oh, I'm 3 frames behind, and skip 3 frames and try to catch up. So that was my own dumbness, and I'm fairly sure that the people that worked on KI, because I worked with most of them, didn't have that problem. So KI probably didn't start with that handicap. Yeah, those guys were smarter than I was when I worked on the initial implementation of SG. But that was the other thing that massively improved basically everything about online. So like it was surprising enough that for about 2 weeks I was convinced I had screwed something up and people were just getting desyncs or whatever and not noticing, and that there had to be something gigantically wrong. But there really isn't. So last week I ended up changing the recommended delay for the ping time to basically 0 all the time, unless your ping's like 150 or higher. And your like the green and yellow and red colors for ping is now like, I think it's like 150 is yellow and below that is green, because it really works that well.
Wow.
And I again, I don't take any credit for the fact that it works that well, because the actual thing that's working well is GGPO.
Yeah.
Right. But you can apply this to any game, not just SG, and it doesn't have to have turbo. That's the thing. So effectively what Skullgirls is doing is sleeping for 1/14 of a frame every frame in order to catch up, or in order to let them catch up. So the way that you would do that in another game is change it from thinking it needs to run at 60 to thinking it needs to run at 56 or 57 until the other game is caught up. You can apply that to anything, because realistically the players won't notice. You could even do, the naive version would be every 14 frames sleep for a frame, which is probably not going to make much difference, but you should still sample inputs. But if your game is just DT based, like if it just says how long is a frame, okay, I need to wait until this time is gone by, then you can just make that slightly longer until the other game is caught up and you're all set.
And like you said, DT base was dynamic time.
Oh, delta time. Sorry. So there are two ways to write your game engine. One is based on number of frames, which is just every time the update function happens, you assume it's been 1 frame and everything goes by in 1 frame. Yeah. That's how Skullgirls works. A lot of the modern engines like Unity or Unreal base it on delta time, which is basically they tell your update function how long it's been since the last time. Right. So if your game runs at 400 frames a second, then your update gets a thing that says it's been 1/400th of a second. And if your game runs at 2 frames a second, your update thing gets something that says it's been half a second. And like you can move objects longer distances in the world and whatever. And it's actually a terrible idea to do that for a fighting game. But if you want to make a fighting game in those engines, what you end up doing is your update function adds up all the time that it's given until it gets to 1/60th of a second. Then it updates for a frame and then keeps the remainder and then goes on. Anyway.
I mean, like as a programmer, for me, like I just have tons of questions about that, but
please ask them.
You know, cool. I mean, go for it. Like for example,
I'll nod my head.
Day, right?
Like if you have like 400 frames in 1 frame, or 400 DTs in 1 frame. Like, how do you process if each of those reads a different input, like you were holding down and then not holding down? Do you always just take the last one on the input, you know?
Right. So this is the first-person shooter versus fighting game thing.
Okay.
There's a video up by someone who tested running, I want to say one of the Call of Duties, but please don't kill me. I don't play FPSs because the last one I really liked was Half-Life 1. But they put up a video where it was, my aiming is much worse in standard or in widescreen than it is in standard resolution, and it turned out to be because their game updated faster in standard resolution. So, yes, in answer to your question, in a DT-based engine, if you are doing something like mouse aiming, right, your FPS can make a huge difference. Yeah, because if you're trying to move your mouse like this far, and your game is updating at 400 frames a second, if you move your mouse a tiny little bit, and it's a gaming mouse and can detect that, right, then your aim will move this much. If next frame you stop moving it, your aim won't move any more than that. Right. If you're running at 30 frames a second, the time interval that the game thinks went by is much bigger. So smaller mouse movements will get lumped together into 1/30th of a second mouse movement, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. No, it does. It does.
And objects move further, right? So like the easy way to think about DT is, let's say someone is walking at like a meter a second, right? If your game runs at 60 frames a second, then they are 1/60th of a meter further every time you get a chance to shoot at them, for example.
Right.
But if the game runs at 400 frames a second, they're 1/400th of a meter further every time you get a chance to shoot at them. So you have the ability to take a much more accurate shot. That makes sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So in a fighting game, the way that you do this is, instead of updating things at 1/400th, you add up the 400ths and do nothing until you get to a 60th, and then you move them 1/60th. Right? That's how you do frame-based stuff in a DT-based engine. But the downside of that is, if you have a delta time that's like half a second, then you have to be like, okay, that was 30 frames, and then you run 30 frames worth of the game. Right? So if you have a DT that's longer than a 60th of a second, you actually have to run more than one update.
Right.
And that's where things start kind of sucking.
I mean, does it...
In a frame-based game, you would slow it down. In a DT-based game, you can decide to slow it down, but you generally don't want to.
Okay. But, I mean, nobody would ever do that, right?
Which part?
The DT being over 1/60th frames of a second, right? So
depends on whatever else happens in your computer.
Okay.
Right? Or it depends on if you're waiting for network input. It depends on when you get something from the network.
I see what you're saying. Gotcha. Because sometimes it's not...
Yeah, it's never intended, but it's...
Right.
You can, for example, if someone wants to run it at 30, they might have the problem where the person moves twice as far every update.
Right. Okay. Gotcha.
So, sorry, that was a non-fighting game related distraction.
No,
but yeah, I actually really enjoy netcode stuff.
Yeah, because the interesting thing about that is that, as a person who hasn't done game programming before, this is really fascinating for me, because now I'm starting to understand now how much that, your game is kind of at the mercy of the person's monitor refresh rate, at the mercy of what they're running their image. You actually don't have a lot of control over a lot of that, and it's not just like, hey, I'm giving you this many images and the monitor's going to figure it out. No, the monitor tells you you're a slave to the refresh rate that the user has chosen, essentially.
That depends on single, double, or triple buffered. Okay, really fast explanation of how this works. So you know how screen tearing looks, right? Everybody's seen screen tearing before, where you see like half of one frame and then half of another one, and like the dude's leg is over here and then his top half is over here, right? Mm-hmm. So if you don't care about screen tearing, you can run at whatever speed you want and everything is great. If you do care about screen tearing, you have to wait until the monitor decides to start the next frame, which is every refresh rate, right? So if your monitor refreshes at 60, then it's 60. If your monitor is set to 144, then it's at minimum 144. But if you do triple buffering, so double buffering doesn't actually save you from being tied to the refresh rate. Double buffering is you have two screens, right? Mm-hmm. This is the one that people are seeing, and this is the one that you're drawing to.
Yes.
And then whenever the monitor's flip comes up, you switch which one is which. So now the people are seeing this one, and you're drawing to this one, right? But you still have to flip it at the time when the monitor is not doing anything else, or you get screen tearing.
Okay.
So you're still tied to refresh rate, but the thing is you have a longer amount of time to draw in. Mm-hmm. Triple buffering, which is what most modern games use and what Skullgirls uses, is you actually have... I don't have enough hands for this. Let's assume this one's divided in half. So you actually have 3 buffers.
I've got a hand up here.
And what happens is, this is the one people are seeing, this is the one you're drawing to, and this is the extra one that's available. And then when you're done drawing for this frame, you switch these two. Mm-hmm. So you always have a fully drawn one and a drawn one in progress, so that whenever the monitor decides to flip itself, there's always something that's completely done for it to flip with, right?
Gotcha.
But you can do this as much as you want, and it doesn't have anything to do with what the monitor is showing or the refresh rate of your screen.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
See? Yeah, I feel like I totally understood that. I wouldn't know how to program it at all.
Yeah, I mean,
I get the explanation.
I don't know how to program that either. You tell DirectX I want triple buffering, and it says, "Okay, boss."
Do you want triple buffering? Yes. Okay.
Yes. The basic upside of doing something like that is then if your game happens to run at like 48 frames a second for a while, you still won't get screen tearing, but you're not dropped immediately down to 30.
Right. Okay.
Right.
And
so a lot of modern games don't actually care about your refresh rate. They will care about that in terms of they want to update the full screen every time. So like if your game can run at 400 and it's not triple buffered, you'll get better performance. But in a lot of cases, I don't know what Call of Duty does, because the other thing with triple buffering is every buffer is a full screen's worth of data, right?
Right.
One of my favorite facts that I'm not actually sure is true anymore, but used to be true, is how many fewer screens of data memory holds than it used to. So if you look at the Super Nintendo, right, that was a 320 by 200-ish, or 640 by 480 if you want to be wrong about it.
Yeah.
Were a screen, but it was 8 bits of data, and the Super Nintendo had a small amount of megabytes of RAM, but that mapped to a whole bunch of screens fit in the memory on a Super Nintendo, because there wasn't very much data per screen compared to the amount of memory, right?
Okay.
If you move to like a PS3, which could output 1080p at 24 or 32 bits per pixel, that's a screen is now a huge amount of memory because it's a much bigger array, and each of them is 4 bytes. Each pixel is 4 bytes, but the amount of memory that you had didn't go up by that same factor. So on a PS3, I'm actually going to do the math for this because I'm really interested and it's very fast. So 1080 times 1920 times 4 is 8 megabytes per screen.
Right.
So if you take 512 divided by that, you could hold you could hold 62 screens worth of data in the entire memory of the PS3, and that was way less than the Super Nintendo got.
Right.
Right? And you had to move all that data every time. But so the deal is, if you do triple buffering, you have to have 3 times that amount of memory available for 3 screens worth of stuff to be kept, which means you don't get to use that memory for a bunch of other stuff. And since that's not an insignificant amount of memory anymore, and you can also have a shadow buffer that's associated with each one, and a stencil buffer and whatever else, lots of companies opt not to do that because they want to have the extra memory available.
I mean,
that's why. Sorry.
No.
Last sentence, I promise. That's why on like the PS4, when you went to 8 gigs of RAM, but you didn't appreciably increase the screen size, it finally felt like we're back to freedom and we don't have to care about how much memory the graphic stuff is taking up. Okay, go ahead.
No, it's crazy to me because, all these companies, all they try to do is like, oh, now we're going to do 4K and blah, blah, blah. And people wonder why, like, games are so hard to make these days compared to how it was before, by making these new requirements. I mean, I've talked about it with like Derek Daniels and all these other guys on Twitter and everything. Games these days, they're just so much more expensive to make. And
yes.
it's so much hard, and I feel like we've lost the A-level titles. We have triple A's, we have indie, and nothing in between, because even by the time you get to the in-between, you're using so much resources and doing so much stuff, it might as well be a triple A title, and you might as well put the extra money into it, or take it away and turn it into an indie one. It's like that middle ground has no home anymore, it feels like.
Yeah. So the interesting part about game dev now, and we've gotten far away from networking, so I can go back to that in a second.
No problem.
The interesting part about game dev now is the actual design part hasn't changed all that much. If you look at the insides, like ignoring animating the character in 3D, right? If you look at the insides of Street Fighter V or Street Fighter 4 versus Street Fighter 2, it's still just, there are some boxes here. Do they overlap or not? Okay, they do. Go to a different character state. Process some input from the joystick. Like, that stuff is basically unchanged.
I mean,
right?
what MK is still using the MK2 engine, right? I mean, like, basically.
Are they?
Something like, I heard like MK9 was built off of the MK2 engine. Like, they went backwards and started from MK2 and went from there and updated that.
I could buy that.
Yeah.
Dang.
So,
I mean, the thing is, a lot of that stuff is not really all that complicated, right? Like, there isn't all that much to a fighting game. There are, I mean, the stuff that the Skullgirls engine does that's not in script is like, okay, you gave me a bunch of boxes that are over here. Your boxes overlap their boxes. Okay, tell you that they overlapped, and like, everything else comes from script. Like there isn't a whole bunch inside a fighting game engine, especially a 2D one. A 3D one, if they have to do 3D collisions or you actually want to collide like rotated boxes or whatever, that's slightly harder. That's why like Marvel 3 and Smash use spheres, because the sphere collision test is really easy to write.
Yeah.
Okay.
But like, yeah, well, a sphere collision test is like, are the two centers closer than the distance the two radii make?
Right.
And like they collide, right? And that's why you have capsules, which are like Tylenol pills, like foot dive. Because it's a sweat sphere. It's a sphere test, but you also care about distance from a line segment, and like those are both really easy pieces of math to do.
Because as opposed to 3D boxes where you have to know where, if you're going to one of the corners, then it's a further distance, and if you're going to the center, it's going to be a shorter distance. You know, things like that.
2D boxes are extremely easy. 3D boxes are the second most complicated type of thing you can do.
Okay.
As compared to like arbitrary polygonal surface. But yeah, anyway, so like the insides of the game itself are not all that different now than they were 10 years ago or even 20 years ago. I mean, there's some stuff that Battletoads does that like modern beat 'em ups don't do any better. But what got more complicated is the art and the rendering and the amount of assets you need for both of those things, right? Like you have to generate a very high resolution screen. People care about how shadows work. Like there's a huge amount more that goes into the graphics and the sound, I guess I should point out.
I remember,
everybody forgets sound.
I remember a tweet from you a long time ago that when Big Band first got added to the game, that you did a test with like 2 teams of like 3 big bands just to see how it was handled, and it worked fine, right? But you know, that's
and it was very surprising.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that, you know, a lot of people don't I mean, one of the reasons why MVC2 has such bad animation is because it had to put 6 characters into memory all at once to pull them out, you know, at any time.
Right.
And so
one of the things that they definitely had to do in Marvel 2 is chop frames out of characters.
Oh yeah. Like you look at
to fit them at all. If you look at Sentinel in Children of the Atom, he's beautiful.
God.
He has all these in-between frames on everything. He has down roundhouse, which is a move I'm really thankful he didn't have in Marvel 2. The
Dude,
buzzsaw.
Spiral's Metamorphosis Super is like night and day between MVC2 and Children of the Atom. Dude, it's ridiculous. Colossus, when he grabs you and spins you, like it literally just flips it back and forth. It's the ugliest thing in MVC2, but you know.
But they couldn't have put it in if they didn't do that, right?
Yeah.
They had a strict memory budget for each character. If you actually look at the data files for Children of the Atom, Sentinel has 3 whole character data files just for Sentinel, whereas like Wolverine has 1, right?
Dude, I mean, the reason why I brought it up is just because, like you said, because the graphics are getting bigger, the resolution's getting stronger, that, you know, having a game like Skullgirls with 6 characters in memory all at once is a lot more expensive than it used to be. And even when you go back to when it was cheaper in MVC2, it was still so expensive that they had to make the game look kind of hideous. You know, I remember when MVC2 first came out, I cried over how bad a lot of the Children of the Atom characters looked. They were gross. They were terrible. Nowadays, nobody notices it anymore because we're used to that version. But man, I mean, Children of the Atom is still one of the most like beautifully animated fighting games out there in existence, in my opinion.
There is something to point out, though, is that if you look at Marvel 2, look at the characters they made specifically for it, right? Look at Cable, Ruby Heart, Tron, Hayato. They are actually some of the best sprite animation Capcom has ever done.
Oh, okay.
Right? If you look at like Cable standing roundhouse, that move that everybody remembers, that move is 7 frames of animation. Okay, it's incredible. An equivalent move in Children of the Atom or Marvel Superheroes would have been 14 or 15. But because they knew that they needed economy, they animated differently. They spaced the frames differently. They made a whole bunch of different choices than they would have if they just could throw frames at it. And as a result, you have something that looks comparable to Marvel Superheroes, but takes up half the amount of space.
Gotcha.
So, like, Marvel 2 is actually, like, the characters that they made for that game is actually a masterclass in how to animate economically.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
That's awesome. No, I think that's
super
super cool. I mean, look, I know. No, go ahead, David.
Go ahead.
I was about to cut it off. What were you gonna say?
No, I mean, it's just like, I was about to say that this is dangerous because, like, seriously, I can sit here. I mean, I've talked to Mike Z outside of, you know, just like on airplanes or whatever like that, you know. I've told him a long time ago I've wanted to write my own fighting game engine. And I was, you know, obviously I don't know anything about game programming, so it probably would not work the way that I would expect it to. But, you know, it was one of those discussions that I talked to Mike about, and he was always like, I'd be curious to hear your kind of ideas, and I want to know what he did for Skullgirls and everything like that, just how to make it work and everything. And I don't know, it's the programmer in me, the person who got into programming because I wanted to make video games. Then it turned out that the video game industry sucked, so I kind of stayed away from it. But I swear I could talk to Mike about this forever, dude.
I mean, we can stop talking about that part, but like, you ought to start, right? The only difference between you and me when I started is that I started and you didn't.
Right.
I didn't know anything about games either.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I've actually told people on my stream before that one of the stream ideas I want to do is just doing a Unity stream. I was just going to learn Unity. Unity right now, because of the quarantining, there's like the whole beginning chunk of lessons are free on Unity's website. And because they're free, I figured I could stream myself learning it. And then, maybe think about doing something. And in fact, one of the topics that I did want to talk about later on was a guy named Born to SPD has made his own hack of Super Turbo. And I have considered trying to learn how to do that myself. Obviously, it's not the same thing. You're just tweaking binaries and things like that, and interpreting the file. You're not actually coding the game, so I don't have the access to do a lot of the things that I'd want to do. But my brain for this quarantine, like I've just been thinking about all sorts of ways to like maybe get into programming and stuff. So,
I mean, you should start. Like,
I think
I
you
tell
should start
everybody
too,
this,
I'll be
but if
honest,
you
man.
want to, like, give it a shot. You won't learn anything by doing nothing.
Yeah, of course,
Sounds
of course.
right to me. I think you should do it too.
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry.
the hard
Go
part.
ahead, cut us off.
Yeah.
No, I'm being serious about that. I've been telling James I think you should be doing other stuff as well. For a
I
long
mean,
time.
the hardest part, obviously, right now is just the mental stability during quarantine, But yeah, it's.
I love this, so I'm not the right person to say that to.
Are you really going to do a
U.S.
an
to Japan?
exhibition between Japan and the U.S.? What's going on?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yes. So the last one we did worked okay, but this one is going to be even better. I mean, okay, that was a good segue, David. I sincerely appreciate your skills. The improvement in the net play, like, I actually can't overstate how good it is. I mean, I played England at 205. I played Brazil at 220 something. And like, yes, occasionally there will be the giant rollback that's caused by 205 milliseconds of delay.
Yeah.
But you can pick, oh yeah, this is definitely the thing that I should talk about. You can pick delay 0 and play somebody on another continent and not care. Right? The whole point of rollbacks is that you can choose the delay you feel on your own actions. Right? So on delay-based netcode, this is like the did you plug it in version of how stuff works, but on delay-based netcode, if we have 10 frames of delay between us, right? So if you don't hear me speaking, which is probably preferable for you, for 10 frames after I've said anything, the way delay-based netcode works is it puts that same delay on both people, right? So if my game isn't getting your inputs until 10 frames late, then my game holds on to my inputs and gives them to the game 10 frames late. That way, both of our inputs arrive at the same time. This is extremely simple to write, which is why everybody wrote it initially. It doesn't require you to change the game engine in any way. You just run it normally. You just have a list of inputs over here, and it reads from the bottom, and it puts new inputs into the top. And that's it. And if the other person's input is later than 10 frames, then the game just waits until it shows up. That's why delay-based netcode is in everything, because it's easy, but that's also why delay-based netcode is complete garbage.
Right.
Sorry.
So just as a means of making sure that people at home understand this, that's why. So basically, if you hit a button at what you see on your screen, because it knows that because it needs to delay 10 frames, your actual action won't come out until 10 frames later I'm not sure who's catching up to who in that situation, but someone has to catch up to the other person, and so that's why.
No one's catching up. That's the whole point.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know who's ahead of the other. I don't know if your frames are delayed, that means you're ahead, or if you're behind.
On delay-based netcode, there's no syncing involved.
Right.
Because your game doesn't advance until it's received the input from 10 frames ago. So you're both internet lag behind reality, if that makes any sense. But the important part about delay-based netcode is, okay, so two things. First of all, in a fighting game, I'm reacting to what I see, right?
Right.
So let's say delay-based netcode works like this. Let's give it the third strike input delay from Dreamcast, okay, which was 4 extra frames over what third strike in the arcade was. I think it was from 4 to 8, right? Everybody thought that was terrible and never wanted to play on Dreamcast, okay? Now, the reason for that is the same reason why delay-based netcode is extra horrible, and it's this. I'm not reacting to your inputs. I'm reacting to your character, right? So let's assume everybody has perfect reaction time, and we don't take the extra 12 frames of human reaction time that's in there. So if you push your character's attack button on frame 10, right? But I should have picked a different number than 10. Let's go with 12 because it's not 10. So you push your button on frame 12, right? We have 4 frames of delay between us. That means your button actually starts happening on frame 16 on both of our screens, right? Then on frame 16, I push my button to react to your action that I magically just saw.
Yeah.
And my button doesn't come out until frame 20.
Yep.
Right? So there's actually double the amount of delay that you would think from learning how to play on a delay-based game. And if you want to know the extra reason, even for things that are guaranteed, right? So let's say you are blocking Chun-Li's Super 2 in Third Strike, and you want to parry the last hit, right? That Super is a guaranteed sequence. It takes the same amount of time no matter what. So you block all of it, and then you just parry the last hit when it comes up. If you're in delay-based netcode, that parry is still delayed. So you actually have to parry that 4 frames or however many frames early, even though the action is the same amount of time and you know exactly when you should do it offline. Make sense?
Yeah. I mean,
that's the example that I use.
Experience as well.
Yep. That's the example that I use for everything. Okay, so that's why rollbacks matter.
Yeah. I mean,
if you ignore everything else about how rollbacks work, what rollbacks let you do is choose to experience no delay on your own inputs versus what you see on the screen.
Right.
So if you're blocking Chun's Super 2 and then you go to parry the last hit, you parry it with the same timing that you would offline.
By looking at it.
By looking at what's on the screen. And that's what makes rollbacks and online play useful for practice, for learning, and comparable to offline play. That is the whole thing that makes all the difference.
Yeah, I mean, fighting games...
rollbacks allow you to choose your own delay, okay? And the way they do that, this is the slightly more technical bit, but so the way rollbacks work is this. Your inputs are still late, right? Your inputs take 10 frames or whatever to arrive to my game. My game says, I don't care. I'm going to continue anyway and guess that you did the exact same thing you did last frame. So I'm going to predict 10 frames into the future, right, to now, and allow my player to do whatever they want in real time. And then when your input from 10 frames ago arrives, I'm going to roll back, that's why it's called that, to the state 10 frames ago, put that input in, and then predict forward to now again from that altered past, right? It's the Doc Brown, when the timeline skewed into an alternate 1985. So now you're in the alternate version of that past, and you've seen the action updated to what they did 10 frames ago.
Right.
Right? But so if they do something that is delayed by the internet or very, very obviously unpredictable, or for example, if they block something at like the last possible second, then on your screen, they're not yet hitting back when you touch them, so you'll see the beginning of a hit spark, and then their input from 10 frames ago will arrive, and it'll be back, so the game will decide, oh, they were actually trying to block in the past, right? And then roll to the now, and say, okay, well, they were blocking. So that's what you get when you see a rollback.
Yeah.
Is the past changed and the present didn't. But the difference is the present, you can provide an input on frame 10 and it'll happen on frame 10 instead of having to be delayed by however bad the internet connection is. Right. So you basically take all the delay and you move it from the controls, which are not visible on the screen, to the visuals, right? Yep. So now the controls respond right away, but the visuals have to correct themselves if something different happens.
Yeah.
That's basically what you're doing, is you're choosing where you want to put that delay. And you can, with GGPO, you can actually choose to put it in the middle, right? You can say, I want to play with 2 frames of input delay, which will reduce any rollbacks that you're going to have by 2 frames, but I will experience some amount of rollbacks. Or if you really don't care about that, you can actually make rollback netcode equivalent to delay netcode by just choosing a high delay.
Right.
If I choose 10 frames of delay on my rollback game, I now play with 10 frames of input delay, but the screen looks fine.
Yeah.
Right? So they're actually fully equivalent. I mean, you shouldn't choose to do that, right? Like the whole point of having rollbacks is that you can just always pick 0 delay. I mean, or 1 if you really want to care about that kind of thing. But you can play as if it's offline. You can do combos, you can do punishes, you can do things related to the screen as if you were playing offline. And that's what makes all the difference. Yeah.
I mean,
and that's why I've been screaming about this for 10 years.
What's the feedback from the community?
The initial feedback from the community, because I screwed something up, was this is terrible. And then once I hadn't screwed up the frame throttling code, everybody really enjoys it. Like the feedback from everybody has been like, I've played people all over the world and it basically doesn't matter where they are. So the community was the one that organized the US versus Japan, right? They played matches on the new netcode and then they were like, we can do this again, and now we can't complain about it.
Pretty sweet.
Yeah.
So it's nice work. I know it'll sell copies of Skullgirls if more people buy Skullgirls. I don't actually care anymore because the amount of money that we make off of it is non-existent now. But you should try it because you will be surprised at the amount of difference that having good netcode can make. You basically don't have to reject any matches anymore. I mean, you still want to reject people on Wi-Fi, but that's for a different reason. Right? Even if they live next to you and they're on Wi-Fi, you generally want to reject it. Yeah.
I mean, so here's a question for you, Mike, though. Does this mean this fix that you put in here, can it be ported to everything that uses GGPO, or is it...
Oh, yes.
Yes, okay. So in other words...
It could also be ported to things that don't use GGPO.
Right. So in other words, if Crystal Dynamics... is it Crystal Dynamics? The one that did Garrow Mark the Wolves? Code Mystics. Code Mystics, sorry. Yeah, Code Mystics and, Iron Galaxy and MK and NetherRealm Studios, they wanted to port this fix into their games. They could, and improve the netcode in their games as well.
Yep. Okay. And they could probably do it by watching this broadcast, because the actual what we did is really not all that hard. It's just someone had to figure out you could do it, right? It's the Columbus's egg thing.
And that was...
you know what that is.
I think it's super cool to still be coming up with ways to improve on things like this. That's awesome.
And that's credit. That credit goes to Liam, who is in the chat, correct?
Yes. Okay. The initial credit for what can be done to spark the round of improvements goes to Liam, who was very smart and thought of it the initial don't sleep part. But it's what not sleeping allows you to do with the rest of the game that's really the giant improvement, right? That was like the key that unlocks everything else that we could do to change how it deals with network delay. The other really nice part that I should say, if people are going to take this broadcast and try and do something with their own code, is before the round starts, like when inputs aren't gonna be frame perfect and nothing matters.
Yeah.
We still sleep, right?
Yeah.
It still checks to see how many frames you are ahead or behind and waits that amount of time to catch up. It only doesn't do it during gameplay because you want it to be as exact as possible when the round starts.
Right.
Right. So it checks very often and it sleeps the right amount of time before any of those inputs are going to really matter.
So, someone can, once this goes up on YouTube, link this to Zynac, please. Link this video to Zynac to make sure he gets this into Guilty Gear Strive.
So we talked just a little bit about the EVO Online thing when you raised your hand, which is hilarious. But do you think that with the netcode that Skullgirls has now, does it seem to you like having an online tournament would be as legit as having an offline tournament?
I'm gonna get reamed for this, but yeah, I basically think so.
Okay.
At least in terms of the gameplay. So the other thing, the thing that I wanted to say when you mentioned it's not the same as going to a giant venue is that it's probably beneficial for people that it's not the same as going to a giant venue because I can sit in my comfy chair. Totally. I can have my cat over here. I can, not be wearing pants or whatever else.
Totally. Yeah, I'm not saying it's better or worse, just that it is different.
Yeah.
It is different.
Some people find that better to be in that tournament venue. They get it up a little bit more. Some people would rather be at home where they're comfortable. It just depends on the person. Yeah. But it is different.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll say, having been there live, for example, during the Daigo Parry and stuff like that, though that kind of crowd reaction experience is irreplaceable, is amazing. Cool. But at the same time, you go there, go 0-2, now you can go and play with your cat,
Well, or they tell you to go play on stage, and now you're on stage and super nervous, right?
But that's experience, and I think that's, even as a person who's at flow levels of floking whenever I'm at those kind of situations, I still think it's a valuable experience and something I like having that aspect affect you as a player. Like that appeals to me, having that competitive environment. But that's me. So
I agree that it is useful experience if you have to play in an environment like that, but it will probably let people have better performances overall to not have to put them through 10 or 15 of those before they can ignore it, right?
Yeah.
So I will say two things, which are we've been running online tournaments for Skullgirls for a long time, so we've dealt with some things like two people playing one team by swapping the controller around, and you could tell because the playstyle changed, but also they won the tournament because they were both really good players, but also because you couldn't psych both of them out.
Jeez.
Right, so we did have that happen, and also there are connection issues, there will be occasional rollbacks because the internet is a wild territory and you have no idea what's going on in between your country and another country,
right?
And between your house and someone else's house. But in terms of actually being able to play the game and execute the things that you think you want to do, if you have rollback netcode and you can play with no delay on your character, it makes a giant amount of difference. It stops being a you versus the online environment, and it starts being much more you versus the other person.
I mean,
so there are the policing issues and everything else that you pointed out, right? You don't know if I'm a bot because you can't see me.
Right.
So, and you don't know if I'm two separate people or if two separate people are both me until they reach each other in bracket and can't play each other. But, you don't know any of that stuff. But in terms of the actual gameplay, it's pretty there.
I'll tell you this. For the brief moment, during what David called the golden age of Street Fighter V, when we were playing on the Altamore patch, and I played online, it felt the most like I was playing and learning offline that I've really experienced, because I haven't played a lot of I haven't played a lot of KI online. I haven't played a lot of Skullgirls online. Punch Planet, them's fighting herds.
Shame.
I know.
Mike.
I mean,
James.
to be honest with you, I mean, David can attest to this.
You too.
David can attest to this as well. But in the past few years, until just recently with Street Fighter V, I haven't been playing fighting games online at all. So, you know,
I get it.
So, but
I mean, look, I played against somebody in Saudi Arabia on SF5 during the Ultimore patch, and it was legit. We were still. I blocked on reaction to moves.
Yep.
It was incredible. So no, that's great. That was remarkable because I felt it was so good for Street Fighter. But yeah, I mean, I've played on Skullgirls and on KI, and I have been playing people in Europe on KI pretty regularly.
And it looks like, you know, just to
becoming accustomed to it.
Answer Rip's question. I believe that's Rip from the Level Up Your Game. So with the new netcode improvement, is Wi-Fi okay now? No. Wi-Fi is still going to be Wi-Fi no matter what.
Okay, so I'm actually going to do like the 30-second explanation of this, because in the video that I made about why Wi-Fi sucks, I said interference. And the reason I said interference is because if you show it to your buddy who doesn't know anything about the internet, interference makes a lot of sense, right? It's not actually interference. This is like the 2-second update to that video. So the way Wi-Fi works is it's actually not talk or send and receive at the same time. So like if you're on a phone, right, you have your your phone receiver, which has the mouthpiece and the earpiece, and there's 2 separate wires that go to the other person's mouthpiece and earpiece. So you can hear them talk and talk yourself at the same time, right? You can both drive down both sides of the highway at the same time. Okay, the way Wi-Fi works is like walkie-talkies. There's one frequency, and either I'm talking or you're talking, but not both, right? So if I want to say something to you, I have to say, hello, David, did you get the data I sent over? And then you say, yes,
Nope.
I got the data you sent.
I mean, yep, I
or
did.
whatever. Right, and if we talk at the same time, nothing happens. So that's the reason Wi-Fi doesn't work. It's not actual like interference, like planes go by and they make static on your Wi-Fi. It's because the way Wi-Fi is built, and this is not fixed by Wi-Fi 6, is that it is what is called half duplex, which means only one thing can talk at a time. So your Wi-Fi can be really fast, which means when I'm allowed to talk, I'm the Micro Machines guy, right? And I say like, and you get it all, and I get high internet speeds, but I still have to wait the same amount of time while you are allowed to talk before I can talk again. So that's what happens with Wi-Fi. Instead of getting packets like this once every frame per my inputs, I get like nothing for a period of time, and then like 5 things, and then nothing for a period of time, and then 5 more things, right?
Does it need to be like that?
The short answer to that is yes, and that's why walkie-talkies work like that. If you're only using one frequency, then only one of us can transmit because the other one will stomp it if they both transmit at the same time, right? So the way to fix that for Wi-Fi would be to use 2 frequencies that are very far away from each other, one for one thing talking and the other one for the other thing talking. But even that still doesn't work as soon as you have 2 devices on the Wi-Fi. So the real answer that the way that they've been improving Wi-Fi is by making it so that you can cram more data into the amount of time you're allowed to talk, right? So you can scream a whole 3D printed N95 mask into one amount of time you're allowed to talk instead of just saying like, well, and then that's it.
Right.
But you still have to do what's called multiplexing, time multiplexing, anyway, to ensure that no one is talking at the same time, right? Because if you really want to be able to do duplex, every device needs its own frequency to broadcast on so that no one is stomping anyone else, and that would be the only thing that allows everything to talk at the same time. So that's why Wi-Fi sucks. It's not actual interference, but it doesn't have anything to do with your speed, right? It only has to do with the way that Wi-Fi is built.
Okay.
So the answer to that is no, Wi-Fi is still not acceptable because Wi-Fi will still do that, and it doesn't matter how far away from you they are. That delay is generally worse than any ping time you're going to get.
Right.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on and talking about all this.
And just so people know, that Micro Machines guy, I made a reference. Nobody knew who I was talking about. John Machida, who also did the voice of Blur in Transformers the movie. There you go. That's all I wanted to add. Okay.
All right, Mike. Well, I guess we're about to go to break, but if you could, in 10 seconds, describe to me your feelings on Guilty Gear Strive.
Oh, God. No, thanks for being on here, Mike. We'll talk to...
Yeah.
It's pretty.
It's pretty. It's pretty. Okay. Okay, there you go.
All right. Crack my own self up. Well,
They're doing a GGPO caster for Exit Core. Those are my feelings.
yeah. All right, buddy. Well, yeah, thanks a lot for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you ever want to have me back when it's another slow news day, let me know.
Dude, I mean, honestly, I may just have you back so we can just talk programming fighting games one of these days, to be honest. Just because that part I'm super interested in. I want to know, like, as much about it as I can, you know, without giving away trade secrets or whatever like that. So
There really aren't any.
Okay.
A lot of the actual fighting game part is how you do the design on your end when you iterate. Like, the actual building of an engine is like, everybody ought to be able to figure out how to do that by now. Also, I guess I should say, I'm very much about freely sharing information in the first place, because my belief is I should tell everybody how to do everything, because then everything gets better, and because nobody's going to do it as good as me anyway. Right?
I love it.
But, like, for real, for the netcode thing, right? I would like every game to have rollback netcode that now works the way that Skullgirls does, because then anyone who wants to play any fighting game online can go and do it, instead of being like, well, I really wanted to play Exerd online, or I really wanted to play Unist online, but I can't with anyone with any kind of good connection. So instead, I'm going to have to play this other game, Skullgirls or whatever, that I don't like. Is like, my goal is not to force you to play the game that I made if you don't like it. My goal is for people to be able to play fighting games online, because the more people that play them, the more people that like them.
Yeah.
Right? You shouldn't, I mean, before SG, like, the choice was 3 SOE if you wanted rollbacks, and if you hated Third Strike, like, that was it. Right? Now your choice of the mainstream fighting games, if you want to play somebody that's any kind of reasonable distance from you, is Street Fighter V.
Right.
And, like, no, I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
I mean, honestly, this is a very fighting game player mindset. You know, you teach your opponents how to beat you, because in the end, that's going to make you a better player in the end anyway. Yep. So
makes sense.
Do you save that as, I don't know what PG-13 level you're at, but
go to the max, buddy.
If you save that shit for nationals,
yep.
If someone has a counter for it, you never got to practice against the counter, right?
Yep.
Right.
Exactly. I mean, it was...
Hey, thanks a lot for coming on again.
Okay. I'll shut up.
Case missed.
Thank you, Mike, for coming on.
Anything you want to plug before you get out of here?
Yes, actually. Okay. In addition to trying the Skullgirls netcode patch, you should really try Them's Fightin' Herds, because the story mode is fantastic.
I just downloaded it earlier today.
Cool.
I'm about to do that.
Like, I'm legitimately impressed by both pixel lobbies and story mode and the salt mines. The fact that they did it with the engine that we gave them is even more impressive. But, like, overall, like, they're really, really good. So
cool.
Please give it a shot.
I definitely will.
All right.
All right, man.
All right. Good night.
Have a good night.
All right. Well, I guess then we are.
I can talk, huh?
Oh yeah, dude, I had a blast with that. But
it was super cool. Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Let's go ahead and go on a break real quick, and then when we come back, we will be talking about more of this stuff up here, all this generic stuff up here. So, be right back. I hope people did get a chance to watch that one stream that I did where I talked about my ideas for the Guilty Gear Strive lobby. And wow, cat out of nowhere. Holy crap, that came out of nowhere. that, you know, people can actually check that out, because yeah, the stuff that I talked about potentially doing with the lobby, and the goal that I had was not to just destroy the lobby, but more to you know, take what the lobby that they have and actually make it work the way I think they intended to. I had a big long discussion about that on stream at one point in time, and you know, I'd be really curious to see what people thought of that. Hi, kitty. Oh, can you guys hear that? Can you guys hear that? Yeah, the lobby was ass, but the lobby wasn't ass because of the lobby system. That's the part that I really want people to understand, is that they could absolutely make that lobby work. They could absolutely make that lobby work and work well and be actually kind of cool and sick if they just knew what they were doing and did it right. And that's what they did not do. They did not do it right, in my opinion. There's definitely ways that you could make it work a lot better than they did. I really believe that. I don't think that there was anything fundamentally incorrect about the lobby. I just feel like that there's a lot more they could do to make it work the way that they had intended it to work.
Winning this Evo pandemic is probably the equivalent of getting a college degree from Phoenix Online. I think it happened, but it really didn't, lol.
I did not know David added the speech stuff to this. Okay. That scared the hell out of me. Oh my god. Oh god, this cat is rubbing his head all over my shoulder right now. He is trying to be a cat so badly. Oh. Gosh. Let's see. What am I trying to do? This wheel, yes, okay. Not here. I want this to be... actually, I do want it to be right here. Yes, okay. And then what I want to do is crop this background. Wait, is this the original background? Or is this no? This is not. Okay. This is this new background. What I want to do is crop the top down like so. Hi, kitty. God, my cat is being such a cat. Wow. Oof. There we go. That's what I wanted to do. And I want to take this. I want to crop the left side of it. We're waiting for David to come back from the bathroom. It's taken him quite some time right now, so that obviously can mean multiple things. Why is this not doing anything? I don't understand here. Intercepted by fresh baked goods. I hope that's the answer. I hope that's the answer. Either that or he's dropping off some baked goods, if you know what I mean. Oh man. Let's do that. That's a bit funky. That's about right. Let's go ahead and zoom this in a little bit and drop this off like so. And that should be good. Okay. Still Still waiting on Mr. Ultra David to return to the scene. Still waiting on him returning to the scene. So you guys get to listen to me ramble just a little bit here. That's what I'm thinking, Tubaware. He's definitely pooping right now. Oh, hey, David. How's it going?
Right. Sorry about that delay.
Okay.
My bad.
Yeah, some people were said that you might have intercepted some baked goods, and I said that it was more likely you were dropping off some baked goods, so.
Or I created my own. I'm not on camera. I just made some toast for myself. Just super simple.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. All right, you ready to drop back in then?
Yes.
All right, let's do this. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Tuesday show. I am once again joined by Mr. Ultra David here in the flesh. How's it going?
Hey, I'm feeling great. How about you?
I feel okay. I mean, I didn't get to, drop off any baked goods or anything like that, like you did, perhaps. So, you're probably feeling a little bit better.
All I did was get some toast. That's it.
Okay.
Now, that toast might be made of homemade sourdough bread, along with homemade kumquat jam, but, it's just toast.
Okay. There you go.
Here's what's going on. We'll move on to the next phase, the 5-5 matchup question section, where we discuss
and honestly,
fighting game related topics.
We got so many questions this time, and I actually cut out like 10 questions about EVO Online because I knew we were going to talk about EVO Online anyway and address most of those questions. But we had a ton of questions this time. It was really, again, I don't know, like, David, do we normally get, like, maybe 30 questions total?
We do not normally get 30 questions.
Okay, because we definitely did.
It's a banner week of not having much news to talk about, and so people giving us a lot of good suggestions.
By the way, how did you turn on the donation read the text thing on the Streamlabs? Is that just an option you can turn on, or?
Sure is.
Oh, okay. I'll have to do that. I did not know that was something I could do. Okay.
Correct.
I thought you needed like some special.
What we do for these things, as James said, is solicit questions from the community, and then we let the people who are our Patreon and Twitch subscribers vote to decide which ones we end up discussing. So we did get a lot. I'll go through the questions that we proposed to people, right?
Yes, that were proposed to us. Yes.
Exactly right. Yeah. So question number 1. How do you ignore rank? I'm at silverish, and I'm taking my time getting my footsies and confirms right. I look at replays of tourneys and sessions and such, and it can be depressing. Ooh, okay. Number 2, how important is the crowd? Is there a way we can get involved other than a chat on the side of the screen? 3, which parry type do you like the most in fighting games, and why? Directional parry like Third Strike, button parry like Yatagarasu or SF5, or reject style, instant block, that kind of stuff. What would be good ways to balance parries to minimize exploits and OSs while keeping their basic usefulness and height? Dang, James's favorite topic. 4, as we approach the next generation of consoles, what are your hopes for each major FGC brand? What do you think is the best course for each title as new iterations are announced and revealed? The next one, what's the best actual fighting game to play that requires little to no combo mechanics in order to be efficient? Nobody voted for that one. What?
I'll answer that right now for the person who answered that question. Samurai Showdown. Okay. That's the answer right there. You get all the mind games without the execution, so there you go.
The next one is, what is the game, fighting game or otherwise, that you loved the most in the past that you realized with time and experience is actually really bad? The next, should Guilty Gear Strive have alternate costume? That'd be cool. Why do 3D fighters seem to struggle to exist in comparison with 2D except for Tekken? The next one is, what are your thoughts on medicinal pot/THC while playing fighting games? All right. Do you think it makes you more relaxed? Nope. The next one is... I
definitely made sure to include that question for reasons I will not go into.
Is there any character you really want to like but just can't like playing? Oh, wow. What do players get wrong about the concept of a balanced game? If you could make your own new fighting game IP unrestricted to known standards in existing IPs, what would your gameplay priorities be? And then the last one is, are fighting games dying? Nobody voted for that. This is the best time to have been a fighting game player ever. All right, here's what won in conclusion. With 35% of the overall vote. As we approach a next generation of consoles, what are your hopes for each major fighting game community brand? What do you think is the best course for each title as new iterations are announced and revealed?
Okay. Well,
what are you hoping for?
To be honest with you, the answer that I give is kind of I get asked this on stream all the time. What do I want to see in Street Fighter 6? And my answer is a vision. That's it. That's all I care about, is that I want them to make a game with a goal in mind that is not a response to all the complaints of the previous version. I want you to make something that, you have an intent to make a game play a certain way, and this is how you're going to do it. I actually do feel that a lot of the people who say Guilty Gear Strive is like the Street Fighter V of Guilty Gear are kind of right, because I don't think they're approaching it with a vision outside of, we probably want to make this easier for people, but also still kind of complicated. Like, to me, that's not a vision. I want them to come in and this is what I want to do. So I already said, if I made Street Fighter 6, I would make a direct sequel to Third Strike. I would bring parries back and do it in a different way. My vision would be, here is, every 3 games, boom, parry game, that kind of thing, and that would be the goal. Not necessarily to craft a game that plays, like, I just want to make another version of Third Strike because people like it, and I feel like it's time to bring some parries back. What the hell, let's do it, kind of situation. So for Strive, if they wanted to make the game simpler, they needed to have the idea of how they wanted to focus in that. But the fact that they changed the Gatling system to something more complicated flies in the face of that. Putting all the data in one location flies in the face of that, because the tension gauge is still at the bottom of the screen. I just feel like that they were not with the right vision. So, if, for example, Tekken 8, their goal is to keep doing Tekken as they've been doing Tekken, do that. If their goal is to reboot Tekken and do something new, do that. But don't do it in response to something. Do it with your own goal idea of what you want your game to play like. What is the goal of your fighting game? Is it supposed to be footsies, beginner friendly, or is it supposed to be manic, mix up heavy? Pick a theme and design the game around that.
Yeah, I really liked when we had Keats on, and he was talking about how important it was to have to have in mind the people who will buy the game.
Yes.
Right? To be planning around that in the first place. That definitely made sense to me. What I would really like, I think, just as a broader topic, I think many of us expect that the next iterations of many of these games are going to be held off until the next series of consoles come out. That is to say, there's a Street Fighter 6 in the works, and it's probably not going to be out until, whenever there's a PS5 or whenever the Xbox Series X comes out. Those are planned for the end of this year, but, from what I'm hearing, that's probably not likely now because everything is slowed down. But, in any case, we'll see. I'm hoping that they wait a while, I think is what I really want. I've been super satisfied with many of the games that have come out. Even if they're not games that I personally like, I see many of my friends really enjoying them too.
Right.
I don't feel like I need a glut of new fighting games. Okay.
Right.
What I want instead is to make really sure that the launches of the next games are complete. Okay. So to have another set of launches like Street Fighter V and Marvel Infinite, or even Tekken 7 doesn't have some aspects of what you would want, or at least didn't launch with some aspects of what you would want in a game. I want games to be fully baked.
Yes.
Even gameplay aside, make sure that there's stuff that's single player friendly. Make sure that there's other reasons to play than just competing online. That's what we're interested in, and I want that to be the primary focus, but there needs to be something else for other people as well. Make sure that the games are ready. And so what I hope doesn't happen is that, these new consoles come out and then there's sort of a feeling of needing to rush to get your games out for those consoles, like at launch. I really hope that they launch when they're ready to launch. It would be a big bummer if we had to, wait for Street Fighter 6 to take 3 years to be a full game ready.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is it's tricky because I feel like very few fighting games can really quite achieve that, because a lot of, again, a fighting game that is figured out largely by the developer is usually a bad fighting game. But yes, Street Fighter V was on a completely different level of being unbaked. That was like, you eat it and, normally if something's unbaked, you eat it and it kind of tastes funny. You're not sure. But Street Fighter V was like at unhealthy levels of unbaked that you would get like E. coli or some sort of like disease from it. So
definitely.
Yeah.
No, so that's most of what I want. I don't have things that I want to see in specific from any of the games, other than that, I want new stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't feel that I need to make demands on, what the developers are going to be looking for or what they should be making. More that I just want to play things that I haven't played before, because I can still play the games that I have been playing. I don't need to give them up. I can go back to them if I feel like the new game is not up to par in some way, or I play a different game instead. I don't feel terribly wedded to like any one particular game or genre,
right,
or developer. So yeah, just have something new that I can enjoy. I think that's really it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, agreed. Again, I know both of us are big fans of the variety aspect of fighting games. So
sure.
Again, none of the games I feel like have to do anything. But like I said, as a vision, as an artist, as a creator, you should have a goal in mind. So, for example, like Mike Z, when he made Skullgirls, he was making a spiritual sequel to MVC2. That was his whole vision right there, to the point where all of the weird, subtle things that happen in MVC2, he emulated to a T. Like if you're super jumping up and you hit somebody, the enemy reels slightly differently than if you're coming down from the jump, and all these like different things that, once you flip, you're not allowed to do another action, and, all these things like that. He really had that in mind. He even purposely programmed the snapback glitch to infinite the partner to death, because he just liked it so much from MVC2, it's that kind of thing.
Sounds right. New stuff. Or whatever. Yeah, just things that I would find fun. I don't know. Again, very broad. I don't feel like I have specific demands. Other than they be ready. Is there anything else to say about that one?
Nope, that's all I had to say.
Is there any other here that you would like to chat about?
Let's see here. The Parry one is interesting because I just talked about how I would like to put Parry in Street Fighter 6.
Okay, what's the question? Or if you want to answer that.
The question is, which parry type do you like the most in fighting games and why? Directional parry like Street Fighter 3, button parry like Autograsser or Street Fighter 5, reject style like Soul Calibur, Sam Show, even Guilty Gear Blitz in Exerd. What would be a good way to balance parries to minimize exploits and OSs while keeping their basic usefulness and hype? One of the main reasons why I feel like Street Fighter 6 should go back to the parry system is because I really like the way they implemented Gil's parry in Street Fighter 5. Obviously I'd want parry to be 1 frame, which is the big difference. Gil's is 2 frames, so you can't just do it on wake up. It's essentially almost a perfect parry, just that with that one flaw in there. But that's how I would implement it. I would make it so that, yes, it would be a command input. And when you put the command input, your character gets stuck in a delay. But if you do parry something, you can cancel that into another parry or into any button. as long as you implement it with a command and so that you can put the delay on it and have all those be 1 frames and make it so you could do it in the air and everything. Because now, if you do it in the air and the guy predicts you're going to parry in the air, they just let you land and they'll kill you. You can't do the whiff, button, throw, parry, option selects and stuff like that. If you just give it the whiff animation, I think you would end up with because honestly, I know a lot of people have heard me say that I don't like parries. The reason why is because there's no real way to exploit it, and punish it if you predict that they're parrying, especially if they just throw OS, but then you gotta, try to beat their throw, you gotta parry their throw tech and stuff like that, and it's just, it's kind of a mess. And so if they just made it so that everybody had delay like that, a 1 frame parry, can do in the air, on the ground with a command, boom, perfect, I think. And that honestly is my favorite kind. I would really love to see a game based around that and see how it would play.
Basically Yatagarasu.
Yeah, but except Yatagarasu had no whiff animation. You could just hit the parry button and then you couldn't parry again for a next few frames. But I would actually like to see the whiff animation.
You want
so that
animation specifically? Okay.
Yeah, so you could bait out a parry and punish it.
Well, I liked what Yatagarasu did because I like the idea of parries. I mean, you definitely can blow up somebody trying to parry standing or crouching.
Right, yeah.
But that is... at the same time, there are many options select with it. You're moving around, right? You wanted to crouch anyway, you get a parry. Like, you can definitely get more parries on accident or through option selects than just by, intentionally parrying specific moves. So I like that Yatagarasu made it so it's a button press. But I also like that there's still ways to blow up somebody who's looking for those parries, and that you can't just do it constantly. There's a little cooldown window. I think in Third Strike, the bigger issue even around that was that some characters were just weighted really heavily toward parrying or crouching parrying. Like, as somebody who's playing against Oro at range, there's no down parry. You don't have to worry about trying to down parry Oro because he doesn't have any buttons at range that reach you. So all you are worried about is that he'll do stand medium kick or forward strong or whatever, right? It's only that forward. So he can't really play the game of, oh yeah, you're going to try to forward parry me? Well, check out my low. Like, he's got a slow sweep. It doesn't really matter. So I think it's more about if the characters were balanced enough with what their options were to blow up parrying, or to blow up the stand parry versus crouching parry, then I think that'd be cool. So I wouldn't want like a big change. I don't think it needs a big change. Like I say, it could be fine if there's a big change too. But I don't think that parries need to be changed drastically. I think the way Yatagarasu did it's nice.
I feel like
I like how Gills is. I don't know. You know me. I mean, I'm pretty much open to how games can be designed. It's
my only concern is then if everybody has those kind of options at those ranges, that it kind of homogenizes all the characters and
yeah, for sure. I wouldn't want everybody to have that.
Yeah.
It's more that maybe in Third Strike, the characters who were the best in general could blow that up really well.
Yes, I mean the tier
that was a big impact on tiers.
Yeah, the tiers in Third Strike were determined by how well you could blow up parries. That was kind of a large portion.
It really was a big part of it.
Yeah. So that's why I would like to have the ability just to bait out parries and stuff like that, because I think that would be really cool. And you don't even have to make the delays super long. Like, like maybe the window to punish it is maybe only twice as long as the window that it actually parries. So you have to be precise with your punishes to make it a little trickier, Gil, I mean, he sits there forever, right? I mean, you have a long
crush
time.
counterable, he's hanging out for a while.
Yeah, you can take like 3 steps and throw him, and there's nothing you can do. So, you can lower the window a little bit like that, but I generally like the overall idea of it. So,
okay.
What about you? Any questions that you want to hit up here?
Well, I guess I'm curious as to why the person who submitted "Are fighting games dying?" submitted that question. I don't know what to say about that.
I mean
my response is definitely they are not.
I mean,
I'm also just wondering why they said that.
I trimmed a lot of the questions. Ooh, excuse me. It's warm all of a sudden, and so all the flowers are going nuts. and that is
Jeez,
destroying me.
You're trying to get it close to me.
Yeah,
I've been really
sneezing
over there.
I've been sneezing on you all day. I'm surprised you haven't noticed. I'm surprised you haven't noticed. But
I have noticed.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to be polite because I'm in your house, but yeah, of course I've noticed.
I mean, all of the questions, I trimmed some of them down. This one was exactly as stated in the question. Are fighting games dying? There was nothing going with it. So, that is definitely... I mean, there's a lot of doom and gloom within the community, I think, but I don't think that's a reflection on if the games are dying or not. I
absolutely think this is the best crop. I feel like each moment that you cut in time, that crop of fighting games that we've had has been better than whatever moment before. Yeah. Like almost consistently.
Oh yeah. Everyone always asks me, "What do you think is the golden age of fighting games?" And I'm always like, "Right now."
Right now, for sure. And I've been saying that for like 10 years.
Yeah.
But like each moment is still the crop. It's like reverse of Office Space, reverse Office Space phenomenon.
I mean, honestly, the fact that I have the problem of wanting to play 8 amazing fighting games or 20 amazing fighting games right now, that wasn't even a thing a long time ago. You basically had 3 games to play and then the Kusoge crowd, basically, and that was all you had. But the fact that, like, legitimately right now, I am hurting because I want to play so many different fighting games. I want to try KI again. I want to get into Skullgirls again. I want to keep playing Unist. I want to keep playing Soul Calibur. I miss the fact that I haven't been playing Tekken. I'm playing Street Fighter 5. I want to play Guilty Gear. I want to play everything. Like, that is great. We are in a time where if you are a fan of fighting games, Samurai Showdown, Grand Blue Fantasy, of course. I can't believe I forgot to mention them. But, like, if you are a fan of fighting games, there is a fighting game for you. Like, there is just no way that none of the fighting games right now appeals to you. If you think that that's true, you haven't played all of the fighting games. That's all basically I can say about that. So
that sounds right to me. And as far as people who are in the chat are interpreting this as meaning, this person may be worried about the future of fighting game community or the tournaments that, we've come to rely on due to the whole COVID-19 situation. Sure, I mean, it's true. It's certainly something that we've been concerned about, too. We've talked about on this show. But I would say that as this whole set of problems has gone on, I've been a little more... I'm happy to see how people are dealing with the community, There's more drama than usual, right? I mean, we're all cooped up, so in a way, there's a lot of gnarly stuff that's going on. But we are playing in online tournaments a lot. We're watching a lot. We're playing games a lot, right? The number of concurrent players for games is definitely high. Like we are continuing the scene for sure.
Yeah.
So worries that I might have had initially that this was going to be like a big just kind of end to things. I think that might have just been like the early sort of doom and gloom. But now that we are into this a little bit more, and maybe a little bit more accustomed to things, again, a lot of bad stuff going on, but we are, people adapt, and I think we're doing that. And so, yeah, I'm more positive about the situation without being overly positive than I was at the beginning.
As someone in the chat mentioned, I know some people don't like referring to it as the Dark Ages and stuff, but I tell the story all the time that in Evo 2008, I had considered retiring from fighting games after that year because I wasn't seeing any new faces at Evo. It was all the same games. It was the smallest Evo that I could remember. I mean, it might not even have been numbers-wise the smallest Evo, but maybe one of the smallest growth percentages or something. It just felt dead. Like, it felt dead. One, that no new young people were showing up, and a lot of the old people just stopped coming and were making games or doing something else now. That was probably one of the, most, fighting games are dying kind of period. That all changed with Street Fighter 4. So, yeah, Fighting Jam was a pretty dark age.
I played that in the arcade for a while.
Oh, boy. I remember Jason Cole talking about how much he liked that game. I remember that.
I actually thought it was fun. Yeah. I played Newell Zangief and Dictator somebody.
I could never take that game seriously. I just couldn't. Like, nothing in my brain let me take that game seriously.
Good old Newell. What a fun character.
With those little squids that died with the little halos.
Hilarious. Yeah. All right, anything else to say for 5-5?
No, I think that's about it.
Okie doke. Well, there is some game news to discuss.
Well, the only last thing I want to say is there are some really important questions in there. Like, for example, how do you ignore rank? You know, I do feel like that was one of those topics that maybe deserves to be talked about. If you'd like to resubmit the question and see if it gets some votes, or maybe I'll save it for an article in the future, so that way I will have something to write about.
That would be excellent.
There you go. Okay.
But you're right, though. That is something I feel like we have discussed that, but definitely worth discussing.
Yeah. Of course.
Okay, so as far as game news goes, Mike actually brought up one of the things I wanted to talk about, which is that Them's Fightin' Herds is officially out.
Yep.
It's been playable via early access, but now the official 1.0 is available.
Yeah, I have some videos that are uploaded. I haven't publicized them yet, but it's me going through some of the characters and testing out what they do and seeing how they play. And trust me, the stuff that I discovered didn't even come close to covering. Like, I was messing with Arizona, the cow, and then I watched a match with someone playing Arizona, and I was like, this character is busted.
Sick.
Holy crap. Dude, the amount of dirt and grime in that game is pretty high. And I think that's really cool. I think that's super cool. They have done so many creative things. I mean, the zoner, what's her name? Violet, I think it is, has like these little snowflakes that she throws across the screen. And, like, she can generate it from the opposite side of the screen, and they arc over. And if they hit you out of the air, it's like a knockdown. You get free juggle off of that. Like, how do you even let this happen? But, like, every character in that game is actually pretty broken, and it's pretty...
Good.
Velvet, not Violet. Sorry, my bad. Velvet.
I like that kind of game where there's, you know, you feel like a powerful player, right?
That's cool. The game is... There's only 6 characters, but like I said, they all have... Like, you go into the move list, and you're like, there's really not much each of these characters can do. And then you start... I watched some footage of some high-level tournaments, and, like, that game is nuts, dude. It's nuts. The amount of stuff that you can actually do in this game is crazy.
I had it on early access, and I tried it once, but that was, at this point, quite a while ago. Mm-hmm. So I re-downloaded it today, and I haven't yet played it again, but I'm definitely intending to do that this week.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, so shout out to them.
Like you said, there's the new story mode in there. It's the official 1.0 release, so it's technically the full game. They delayed it a little bit because they wanted to make sure it came out right. And judging by what Mike Z said earlier, the fact that he was so impressed with the stuff that they managed to pull off with his own fighting game engine, speaks volumes about what they were able to do in that game. So there you go.
So, speaking of story... In Mortal Kombat 11, there was an announcement of an announcement.
Yeah.
And this is going to be, I assume, story update. And there's going to be more news about it at 6 a.m. tomorrow, 6 a.m. our time, Pacific time tomorrow, which is the 6th. I'm not really sure what this is, but I like it just because... It implies to me that we're going to get to play Mortal Kombat for longer. Right? Like the big takeaway for me is, cool, this means that it's not going to be like Injustice 3 right away. There's going to be at least a period of time here where we get to play Mortal Kombat 11. As I've been saying, I hope that we get to keep playing it for years. And the rumor is that we will be able to. And Ed Boon has said things that maybe make me think more strongly of that. But yeah, I think this is a good indication that they're not planning to put out, the next other fighting game soon, and that they're actually planning to support this game moving forward.
I mean, if they are teasing at a second story arc, I
think that's what it is.
For MK11, that's no small thing. And so you can't imagine that they would just do that for the sake of just putting a second story out there. So obviously at the final combat or the finals, for the tour, there was no announcement for a second season pass and stuff. You know, maybe this is the indication for that not only are they doing a second season pass, but they're going to continue the story. And like I said, there's no way a company like NetherRealm Studios, Warner Brothers, would put this much time and effort into continuing the story arc without also adding more characters and DLC and stuff like that. So yeah, I 100% believe that this portends to more stuff. And, you know, honestly, I hope that they do also, you know, obviously I don't want massive tweaks, but like, you know, throw in a new mechanic here or just change things up a little, I think would be kind of cool. Nothing massive.
Well,
nothing massive.
I agree with you. With Spawn, they've implied some additional stuff.
Right.
Spawn has the ability to beat a breakaway. He just has a special move that just breaks the armor of the breakaway. Mm-hmm. And that means that he's the only one who has that right now. You know, come on. I feel like that's going to become like a thing. I don't know. I'm just spitballing, but that's my take on what that means. So yeah, anyway, I'm expecting that there's going to be more stuff. In this little trailer, Raiden hears some people walk in as Liu Kang's like playing with the time warp or whatever, and Raiden identifies the character speaking as Shang Tsung. And there are 3 characters who are walking in from wherever, from some portal. Mm-hmm. So what I think is that these are the 3 DLC characters that have come out. What I think is that this is Shang Tsung and Nightwolf and Sindel. Those are the 3 MK character DLC characters who have come out.
Because they weren't in the story mode before, right?
Because they weren't in the story mode before. So I really, that's my expectation of this. And I kind of even think that like it looks like Nightwolf to me with his little like arrows and stuff from the back. But other people think that looks like a sword. And people are like, no, it's actually Fujin, who people have wanted for I don't know how many games now. And other people are coming up with, you know, even more inane theories. I don't know. We'll find out in how long? Look, not even 12 hours.
So there's 2 ways there's like 3 ways to look at this, right? I mean, Boone likes to troll people, and they like to do the reveal-y kind, like the hidden kind of thing. So why would they silhouette them so you can't see them unless they are the new characters? Because if they were the old characters, why wouldn't they just show the old characters, right?
Because we're having the conversation.
Right. And so that's the other way to look at it, is that that makes us talk about it. But if that makes us talk about it and it turns out to be the old characters, doesn't that make people mad? Aren't they worried about that aspect? Or
I want to know, even as somebody whose primary motivation for playing fighting games is not story mode, I want to know, like, what does Nightwolf think about all this? Like, what does Sindel think about all this stuff? Like, what's Shang Tsung gonna do? Is he about to conquer God Liu Kang? Whatever Liu Kang like melded with Raiden or whatever. I want to know about it. So yeah, I think it's cool. If that is what it is. But look, if it's other characters too, sick.
Right.
That sounds great. You know, I know that there's some people have said that they think it's Shiva. I think that's probably not right, but at the same time, Shiva is in the story mode, and she's been a playable character in the past, so she's like contemplated in this game. And if there's going to be more DLC, she seems like a likely pick as a result. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I maybe wouldn't be too insane to see that, or maybe there's going to be like, you know, a little bit more about whatever story trailer, and also like hidden info about other new characters that they're going to have as DLC. I think there's a lot of stuff that they could be doing here.
That's just the thing. Is like some people in the chat are saying like, why would you silhouette them? Like, I think that would be messed up. And it just makes me think of the Banjo-Kazooie announcement where they had the Banjo-Kazooie silhouette and it turned into the Duck Hunt dog.
That's right.
Which was amazing. And then it was Banjo-Kazooie, you know. Maybe they can pull something like that. Like, it's the shadow and then it's just, oh, look, it's Sindel and Nightwolf. And then they walk to the side and more people are behind them or something like that, you know.
Yeah, like Shiva's walking up there. She's a forearm character.
Yeah, you know? Exactly. She's hiding.
She's walking up there with like 2 of the front arms are just like crossed in front of her chest, like this, you can't tell at all. And she's like, oh, actually. You know?
Yeah, I think that would be hilarious. Man. But yeah, no,
anyway,
it's exciting news. It's exciting news. That's good. I mean, NRS obviously has the history of just constantly pumping out new games every 2 years, and it kind of hurts the scene a little bit. And this one feels like that they're definitely going to put in more time. Obviously, we're only in 1 year in, but, you know, it seems, I don't know, something feels different about it. You know?
Well, look, previously it's been a year and then the next game's announced.
Yeah.
That's happened a couple of times. That didn't happen with MK11, but that has happened in the past. And yeah, I mean, that was a bummer, honestly, because it meant that that happened each time. MKX, Injustice 2. Maybe not Injustice 2. Anyway, it did happen a few times. Immediately, people are like, well, you know, enough of this game.
Yeah.
Even if there's a lot left to explore, which there definitely was in all of those cases. Enough of this game, whatever, I'll be back for Injustice.
You all remember what happened when Street Fighter V was announced, right? Everyone's like, man, when Street Fighter V comes out and all of this bullshit is gone from the game, now you'll see how, that happens when you announce the new game. People are just like, well, now I don't have to deal with this anymore, and now you'll see,
Anyway, it can't be Melina because the rule is that if bugs eat your face, you're dead permanently and you can't come back to life. Sorry.
I mean, but there's a second Scorpion, so there could be a second Melina, right? So, theoretically.
I don't understand. That sounds impossible to me.
Okay.
And then other game news very minimally. SF5 was supposed to have server maintenance, but it was postponed due to COVID-19.
Okay.
No big deal.
Well, I forgot to change us to the fighting game news. Sorry about that.
Oh, geez. Well, just moving on, I guess, to FGC news, community news now. And there's also not a lot on this one. But shout-outs to Panda Global for picking up a bunch of players.
Yeah.
So they are now sponsoring / are sponsoring again Punk, Kizzie K, and IBDW. So they got players from, Punk more the Street Fighter side, Kizzie more the anime side, IBDW Smash. They've been trying to spread themselves out, and that's something that they've done in the past too. So I think that's cool.
I think it's awesome. I mean, Punk wasn't going to stay unsponsored for very long, right? So,
sure.
And getting picked up there, I think, is a great move. Just like Sonic Fox and the Kill Stage getting picked up by Panda, by EG. Sorry, EG, not PG. Yeah. EG. But Kizzie is, one of those players that obviously, it's easier for us to be biased as he's SoCal. But, I mean, outside of even that, he's just been one of the best players in, everything he touches. He's such a talented person. He definitely deserves this kind of, support. He was even amazing at, Final Fantasy Dissidia NT when that, during the launch tournaments and stuff like that. But he got second in the Grand Blue launch event. Samurai Showdown, he was really good at. Guilty Gear, he just won a Frosty Faustings. It's like, this guy is an amazing player. He is a smarty. Yeah.
So those are good pickups. They also hired a bunch of folks on the staff end, which is good as well. How many? Coney, Juggle Rob, Jackie Peanuts, Clash Chia, Every Damn Day Twitter account. My name is BN Twitter account. Koi FGC, Kong Munism. I don't know all those players or those folks, but anyway, they are hired on the staff side. So this is like a huge expansion for PG.
Yeah.
It's not just about players. They got a bunch of other people as well. So I wanted to talk about this here. I was just asked in the chat. From a business standpoint, is it a great move to be sponsoring players during a global quarantine? It's interesting to see that they're picking up this many people. Again, not just players. At this moment in time, because at this time, there's a whole bunch of worry in esports about, not just the future, but the short-term future of some of the leagues, some of the teams, whether player salaries can remain as they have been, whether advertising is going to dry up, if there ends up being a big recession or even depression out of this. Whole bunch of stuff up in the air. And for Panda Global to use this time to pick up a bunch of new people, unexpected. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, look, they don't have to pay for their travel. They don't have to pay for a hotel.
Yeah.
They don't have to pay for a lot of things. I mean, that's kind of the, humorous answer to that. But honestly, the Panda Global guys have been one of the only teams out there that has been able to do the sponsor stuff and still really be able to just talking to them, listening to the way they talk about their investments and all this stuff, they definitely have a lot more knowledge in terms of how to make money off of players and not just have it be a money pit kind of thing. They're building a brand and all this stuff. And so I trust the guys at Panda Global to, that if they're making this decision, it's not a foolhardy decision like sometimes we see from these teams that sign all these players and you're like, well, is this just going to disappear all of a sudden? Panda Global's been around for a long enough time that I feel like, that this might act like I trust their budgeting and their plan. It may not work out for them, but like I said, they don't have to pay for travel and stuff like that right now. So there you go.
That really is a good point. I hadn't thought about it. That I also don't know what the salaries are. I mean, I didn't look at most of these contracts. So good old memory. It's coming back. Anyway, yeah, I hadn't thought about the lack of travel. So. I agree with you that when I think of PG, I don't associate it with the problems that some other teams have had.
Yeah.
Some teams, I'll be honest, they are kids playing around with their parents' money.
Yep.
Or they are completely unrealistic views of the explosion of esports and wanting to spend a bunch of money right now, and then also not really expecting for it to take that long for there to be, recoupment on those costs.
Right.
It's just completely, it's not going to happen like that. So I don't think that PG is like that. I mean, the guys who run it are smart fellows. They've been in games for a long time. They've been in the scene for a long time, even before they started the team, So these are definitely people who I wouldn't think are doing stupid stuff.
Right.
I don't know what their plans are, but yeah, I think that it's an interesting time to pick players up. And I don't know. I guess we'll see if other people do it. Mostly the trend has been the opposite. So it's nice to see that this is happening too.
It sounds like you're kind of coming from the same viewpoint that I'm coming from. It's like, it's strange. We'll see how it goes. But it's very, given their history, it's very easy to trust what they're doing right now. So,
sure. That sounds right to me. And then, hey, congratulations to Trashbox, who got 1 million points in Street Fighter V on CFN. 1 million points. First player to cross that threshold, 1 million points. My number of points, which is, I've been hovering around Master, is like a rounding error for that. Like, that's remarkable.
Dude,
right?
I'm trying to get up there in ranks, and it's just like every time you lose so much more than you gain. Because he's only going to be playing people who are significantly lower ranked than him. And somehow he managed to get 1 million points. I don't know how he did it, but the cool thing about it is, though, when he got the 1 million points, the game gave him a whole nothing.
I know, there's no extra thing.
There was nothing. Nothing. Oh, it's funny.
There wasn't an extra rank up there, it turns out. Yeah.
No,
I mean, congrats to him. He spent a ton of time on that game, that's for sure. I mean, he's a very strong player.
Yeah.
Jeez, 1 million points. I've never played a game that much, I'm sure. And I feel like I'm in like the upper percentiles when it comes to like how much time have you spent on any one individual video game. I feel like I'm like probably pretty high up there in terms of that percentile, but I have not approached for sure in any of the games that I've played the amount of time that he's played us.
Well, you remember the card that FAB had for training mode in Guilty Gear Xrd. I forgot what the time was on that, but it was like hundreds of hours that he had in there just training mode on the arcade. Yeah. But I mean, look, Trashbox, it's a recipe for being very strong. You're gonna be one of the best players for that reason. And as bad as
he almost made Evo top 8. He almost made top 8 a few times. He did make top 8 once.
And as much as people clown on Street Fighter V's netcode, rightfully so, the thing about it is, he still has more experience in key moments and character matchups and situations than anybody else does, except for maybe Problem X, so he's got a lot of information out there. and it's gonna definitely help him a lot. Yeah, IDOM, same thing. You know, all these players who played online. Punk was an online player, and then he showed up and then beat Justin Wong and almost beat Tokido at that Northwest Championships the first year. So it's just the way it is, man. Like, again, fighting games are about repeatable situations. That's the one thing people have to remember about fighting games, is that they're a program. There's no magic in it. If the same conditions happen, the same result happens. Like, that's fighting games. And so every time you're put into a situation, it's the same situation you've seen before. And the more of those situations you experience so that you're never thrown off guard, the better you'll do. And that's what playing online helps you.
Yep. Common in many games nowadays. The NRS community that's happened a bunch of times at this point.
Yep.
No longer novel. Well, that's all I got for community news.
Okay.
That's it, dude. There's not a lot happening. You know.
That's fine. That's
You
fine.
know.
I mean, I hope people have been appreciating the fact that we have been bringing on these guests a lot more now, and we thank the guests as well for showing up and helping us with this and willing to talk for so long. It's really fun to do that. So yeah.
Yeah, I've had a good time on it.
And now that, you know, everything we're doing now is online, except for you coming over and driving over every week, clearly.
Yeah, I'm still here in person. That's right.
By the way, we hinted at this last week. We kind of like casually mentioned it, but, you know, we're looking into trying to do beginner tournaments. Is that something you guys would like for us to do? I could try doing like a quickie 8-man bracket on Sunday or something like that, just to see how it works. You know, to see how hard it would be. I'll try to do all the Smash GG and stuff like that. Beginner would probably be something like Ultra Gold and lower. You'd have to basically be under Platinum, or maybe even under Ultra Gold. That you have to be Gold and lower, because it's so easy to bounce between Platinum and Ultra Gold. That, you know, having you from, you know, solid gold and below, I think would actually be kind of cool to have people compete against each other. And
also don't be a jerk about it and get on a Smurf, because we'll just kick you out.
Yeah, I mean, we'll be
be jerks about it.
We'll be able to tell, and there's not going to be any prizes. So, you know,
Let's just hang out and play video games and help other people learn how to play video games, and maybe demystify entering the tournament as an experience,
right?
Even if it's online, it can definitely help your preparation for when we're all.
Not only that, but if you play week after week, you'll run into the same people again, and that kind of teaches you this idea of learning the storyline long term as opposed to short term. You know, a lot of times when I run into people online, I'll lose to them, and then the next time I run into them again, I can beat them, probably because I have a little more experience with understanding the long-term story. You know, I'll remember the last time I fought them, how they played. That's a skill and a talent that I don't think a lot of people have. And that's something that I'd be interested in cultivating by having these kind of online tournaments. So,
yep, let us know if there's interest. And if you're watching the YouTube video as well, give us a little comment about that if it's something that you would be interested in entering.
Okay.
Alrighty.
You've been playing anything else? Just Doom?
I've been grinding Killer Instinct.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
The thing about Killer Instinct is that it's simultaneously super fun, even at a low level, and even when I'm getting my butt kicked. And also, I feel like I'm climbing the endless stairs. Like, I feel like I'm not on the lowest rung of the staircase anymore, but also that I don't see that I'm any closer to the top of the staircase.
Okay.
I feel like there's so much to know. You know how in many games, when you learn something about one character, it's applicable in some way to other characters. Like, how do you deal with this character's situation when they're slightly advantaged?
Right,
okay, you know, they're going to do like a trap or whatever, or this, you know, in this game in this other game there tends to be cross-up mix-ups, or whatever. Maybe it's some other game, they like to set down a projectile as a median and they play a little mix-up game around that. This game you don't learn anything about other characters by learning one character. Like, there's just so little that's applicable across the character, which I love, and at the same time, it's going to take a long time to learn. But I feel like I'm, you know,
that's the beautiful thing about that game, right? Because it's the neutral that makes everything different when you're fighting the different characters. But once you get hit, the combo breaker system is a little universal enough that that next layer of being able to maybe save yourself is kind of familiar. So you
at the same time, different characters have pretty different combo traits.
Oh yeah. But
even mid combo, there's a lot of stuff that's quite different.
But it's enough, I think, to be this awesome blend between, hey, I don't know what the hell's going on in this guy's neutral. Now that I'm getting hit, I still have this familiar aspect to save myself. And I think that's a good crutch to help people learn about a lot of the different characters.
It's a very, very approachable game at lower level for sure.
Yeah.
But then, like I said, at lower mid, which is probably where about I am, I'm beginning to look up and try to find where the ceiling is, and it's not even in my sight. So as Hiro says, I got some games online against the player Devil May Care, who just happens to be like, one of the best TJ players in the world, I guess. And so he was doing TJ stuff, and I didn't know about. My conception of TJ was like, okay, I know there's a command grab. He has a fast dash punch. I don't know. I think that was all that I really knew. And then he's doing these totally different looking combos, and long stretches of the combos are not even breakable yet through some rule.
Whoa.
I don't know. I have to go in training mode, I guess. But anyway, there's just a lot to know, and I've been enjoying learning, but also I can tell there's a ton of stuff left to learn.
Cool. I'm also trying to find the official announcement for this. People, oh yeah, here we go. ECT has been canceled.
Oh, is that new news?
Yeah, came out at 6 p.m. like maybe 2 hours ago.
Wow, that was in fall.
Yeah, the East Coast Throwdown team is officially canceling East Coast Throwdown 2020 in direct response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Fortunately, we did not begin any registration or collection or room block bookings, which should minimize any inconveniences to our attendees, partners, sponsors, and staff. As such, if you have booked any means of paid travel for East Coast Throwdown 2020, we do recommend reaching out to the respective service provider for a refund or credit. Understand the severity of this pandemic. This is both a discouraging yet easy decision for us to make. There's a bunch of information here, but then there's one section listed here as transparency time. To give the FGC some perspective, East Coast Throwdown as an organization is thankfully marginally affected by the circumstance. Our current home at the Hilton Stanford have been incredible, accommodating in this time of uncertainty, treating us as a true partner. We have been able to reschedule our contract for 2020 into 2021 with absolutely no penalty. As many of our fellow tournament organizers are not as fortunate, it's imperative for us to clearly state that our financial well-being is not at risk. Please do not consider any community-based fundraising opportunities on our behalf, as that will inevitably be needed for some of our peers that are beholden to their venue agreements. What? That's awesome, dude. Good.
Yeah, those are good folks. Everybody who's involved at ECT, real good people on the tournament and promotion side and back end of things. They got a lot of good folks.
And they did say that East Coast Throwdown 2021 will be officially on Labor Day weekend, September 3rd through 5th on 2021. So they have, like they said, renegotiated the contract. I see they got Labor Day weekend, so there you go. Pending we find a vaccine of some sort and the curve actually goes down in September 2021, that's when ECT will be back.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anything else to say? What do you got going on?
Not much. Unfortunately, a lot of people are hit by the COVID stuff, including Gung Ho. And there hasn't been any patch updates, balance updates for Teppen. And so we're still kind of stuck in this crazy meta. But even still, the meta has shifted drastically. The team that got me to 200th place can almost barely not win anymore. Because of how much the game has changed since even then. And so it's really interesting just to see how... the weird thing about fighting games is no matter where you are, you still have to consider every character. But in card games, like, if you're a deck that gets beat up by a particularly other deck that's just not as good, you won't run into that deck. You know, it's
not in the ranked format.
Yeah, you just don't run into it as much. So it's unfortunate right now. I know a lot of people are frustrated because the current meta is a little bit, you know, I'll say it, a little whack just because of the whole memory thing, which means people are playing action cards everywhere, so games take longer and stuff. But, I mean, it's still intriguing to me that it's still changing and that even the deck that I did great with, even at the very end of last season, I could barely win a game with that deck anymore. And so it's fascinating to watch, honestly. So.
Oh, dang. Part of them's Fightin Herds delay was COVID related. Oh, dang.
Oh, dang. Okay.
But,
cool.
Impacted relatively little since we have no physical office. That's the same for a couple of my clients who make video games. They this doesn't actually change their like workflow at all. Like they're all across the country essentially already. It's kind of
and that's Oreo the Wolf, part of the staff of them's Fightin Herds. They came into my chat. And when I was playing them's Fightin Herds on stream recently and talking about a lot of stuff and, you know, giving me advice and everything like that. So that was super cool. So shout outs to them again.
Yep, I'll be firing that game this week.
Cool.
Just download
I'll be putting up all of my experiments on YouTube during the course of this week. I've got a few videos that I'm going to throw up there pretty soon. So, okay.
Alrighty. I guess that's it.
Yep, I'm going to bird him.
Bird him. Thanks for hanging out, everybody.
Bird him.
Hope everybody's staying safe and feeling good. Taking all this business seriously.
Yep. And please stay inside. I mean, we've seen all these protests and people trying to open up, and now we've had a spike in cases. What a surprise.
Indeed. All right, everybody.